Today on the podcast, we are here to celebrate 25 years of James Cameron's Titanic. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Dissect That Film podcast, where we dissect your favorite films and film franchises. I am your host, Brett Parker. Joining me, as always, are my wonderful co-hosts, Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming. And our guest, via the DTF phone, is one of the... This is all my opinion, but it's all true. One of the best true crime podcasters around, and a Titanic expert. Yeah, I labeled her that. We have the wonderful Ashley Lanna.
Hello. I'm actually really excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about this.
We are so excited. We are so excited to have you here to talk about the Titanic, because this is the reason why I asked you to be on this episode. So you have your own podcast called Lullaby, the Fear Podcast, where you did an episode about the Titanic. And literally, as you were talking about your passion about it, I was like, that sounds exactly like me when I was a kid. Watching this movie and just like wanting to literally watch every documentary, read every book about the Titanic. And still to this day, at 31 years old, I still am so enthralled with the Titanic. So your passion for the Titanic was like, we're like one and the same. And so I definitely had to ask you to be on this episode specifically. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for asking. I am a technically self-proclaimed Titanic expert, but I am actually a Titanic historian. I didn't go to school for it, but I like to think that since I've been studying it since 2000, that I got my facts down straight.
There we go. All right. So yeah, Ashley's going to be here to make sure that, she's going to share all of the historical facts. I know some things from my memory is a little fuzzy, but Ashley's going to make sure to give us all the facts about the actual event as we talk about the fictional retelling of the event that James Cameron gave us in 1997. So,
Titanic was called the Ship of Dreams. And it was. It really was.
Give me your hand. Trust me?
I trust you.
Open your eyes.
I'm flying! Jack!
You never know what hand you're gonna get dealt next. You learn to take life as it comes at you. To make each day count.
I will never let go, Jack. I'll never let go.
So before we start all of the other stuff, Ashley, why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast?
Well, as you've mentioned, I am the host of Lullaby, the Fear Podcast, and what I do is I explain and examine the dark psychology of criminals, and then I explore historical disasters and events such as the Titanic. And ever since 1999, when I got the Titanic on the double VHS, which I can see in the background, I've been, just like you, obsessed. Like every child, just I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, I haven't seen this movie in years, and going back, I just felt all those emotions again. Because for me, it wasn't the love story, it wasn't the Jack and Rose story, it was like everything to just do with the ship. just them walking through the ship. I'm just like, I felt like I was there. I didn't give a shit about them. I gave a shit about what was going on with the ship, and all of like, of course, the historical figures that played into the event, and the making of the Titanic and all that. So yeah, it was a wild ride. But yeah, you're definitely the person we needed here to talk about this.
I have a little fun fidget for you if you're curious.
Of course.
So when I just got out of high school, so it was like 2010, and I believe it's in 2011, I was working at a gym, and one of the members walked by, and it was late in the afternoon, and he was carrying like a poster board carrier. And we just started up talking, and I asked him what was inside it, just being a little nosy. And he casually just said that he was carrying a blueprint for the RMS Titanic. And then my childhood just went, I need to know. And I'm like, may I see it? And he goes, yeah. So we walk over to this table, and he lays it out, and it was a full 2-page copy, massive poster of the blueprint of the Titanic. And then he told me that he was a member of the Canadian chapter of the Titanic Historical Society. So that's how I got more involved with the history of the Titanic. So if I get really excited, that's why. It's passion.
Heck yeah. That's what that's what we love. We love the passion here. When it comes to talking movies, when it comes to talking about historical events or just anything in particular that we're passionate about, I love to see it. So
I love it.
Let's talk about our experiences with the movie itself. So Ashley, why don't you start out and tell us what was your first experience with the movie, and what are your feelings after watching it recently?
Well, the first time I watched it, it would have been roughly 2000. Like, it was a couple years after it came out. I wish I could have seen it in theaters, but we weren't at that point yet. And I remember being at the age where you didn't really understand the concept of the ship sinking, but at the age where you understand the love story. So when I was younger, I watched it for the Jack and Rose. And then as I got older, I became more curious about the history. So when I seen it at the age of being able to understand what happened, it's like experiencing it in two different ways, kind of like you mentioned, because you can watch it for the love story or you could watch it for the facts. And James Cameron just nailed it.
All right. Angelo.
I don't remember what year I first watched it. I do remember it was on VHS because I had to watch it at my sister's house. And it got to the one scene where he's drawing her, and she's just like, nope, fast forward. You don't get to see this. That was
everybody's parents
so,
growing up that age.
But it sparked something. I mean, like you two, it just sparked something in me. And like, I just remember trying to read as much as I could. I don't remember as much as I used to because, kids and brains don't let you remember. But I had a Titanic book that my sister-in-law bought for me, and I've had it for, probably, I graduated in 2004. I think that's when I got it. So I've had it forever. I cannot find it, and I'm so upset that I may have lost it. But yeah, so much research was done from the inspiration, which is this movie is awesome. Like, don't know why I haven't watched it more since. Well, I mean, I do know because
it's 3.5 hours long.
It doesn't feel like it though.
But sometimes there's moments.
But it almost feels like, yes, it could have been shorter because they could have taken all the stuff with Jack and Rose out and I would have been perfectly fine.
Yep, I agree. All right, Dan, this is the one I've been waiting for. Let's go.
I know. I'm watching his facial expression just filter through emotions. I'm
the emotive one. I'm the one that's going to make an ass out of myself. That's what I live for.
Let's go.
Surprise for everybody here. I actually just watched Speed 2 Cruise Control because it's practically the same movie and it's much shorter.
Oh,
it's a boat
man,
that's a pier, not an iceberg.
That one won 11 Razzies, not 11 Academy Awards like Titanic did.
Still fun. Anyway, I remember when this movie was coming out, did not give two shits about the movie. In fact, I didn't give two shits about the movie leading up to the point Parker said, you need to watch this. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm fascinated. It's like, no, dude, you're watching this shit.
It has been mentioned on the show because Dan was like, I am not looking forward to when we have to cover Titanic. And I was like, it's coming soon, baby. April.
Oh, by the way, and the beginning of, for our video users, of me laying limp here was not my disinterest. I was my imitation of a corpse in the ocean is what I was doing at the beginning of the podcast. So anyway, dude, it's over 20, was it 22 and a half years? It's fine. We're past that threshold.
22 and a half years. What are you talking about?
That's the cutoff where you can make jokes about stuff.
Oh,
I thought it's
is that the official cutoff?
It's South Park. I'm sorry. Anyway,
what is happening?
Sorry. I have no idea.
Oh,
but
no.
like I said, you just
watched
roll with
South
it.
Park earlier.
No, in all seriousness, I remember the advertisements for it, and I remember my mom watching it. I remember having the double VHS. I remember my cousin having it, and I seen bits and pieces of it just throughout my life. I never watched the movie in its entirety until Thursday. And
that's impressive.
Right?
I actually find that impressive.
Well, so there you go. So like, I'm not obviously a romance movie guy. It's pretty obvious by anybody that's watched this podcast or listened to this podcast. But the subject matter is not big on me. However, I did grow up watching some stuff on like the Discovery and the History Channel about the Titanic that I found was interesting. But those are like hour-long shows. I'm like, oh, this is just on. Let's just watch this. Like that I found interesting, but I don't have much of a history with it.
For me,
I got a podcast episode for you.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of good ones.
From this one.
For me, it started, I think my parents bought the VHS in probably like as soon as it was available, because this was released in late 97. And so it probably came out on VHS around the end of 98, because this was in theaters for like 20 weeks. Like it was like one of the longest running movies in theaters. And it became at the time the highest grossing film of all time until James Cameron said, let me do it again. And 2009 Avatar broke it. Fucking James Cameron. And then he's like, let me do it again. And a Way of Water is like, no, stop it. Go bad. Stop with the Avatar movies, James Cameron. No, I remember my parents or my mom letting me watch it. And of course, you get to that scene and everybody turn around. Cause I think I was like 7 the first time I had ever seen this movie.
I'm like, what are you doing?
What's happening?
She's like, don't ask. I was like,
and even at a young age, I was like, it's only PG-13. What are you doing? What's happening? Until I was like a little bit older, and it was like, oh yeah, there's boobs in it. It's like, oh no, oh no, not boobs. And then I remember my dad, because my parents were divorced, and so like my dad also had the double pack, and he didn't give a shit, and I just watched, and I was like, first time I ever saw boobs, guys.
Here's what I'm wondering about. So I think I know how he did it, but I'm curious how he managed to get away with that amount of tatters in like this PG-13 film, because it's not even just like very brief. It's actually elongated over multiple scenes. So I'm assuming
there's no way it could happen anymore. I don't think they could ever do it again. But I think the reason behind it was that it wasn't a sexual scene.
Yeah, it's artistic.
Yeah, so I think they were like, it's fine. But now it's like,
oh, geez. They're like James Cameron.
You see a nipple through a shirt, and you're like, whoa. That's rated
James
R.
Cameron just wanted to kind of brag about his artistic skills, because that was him drawing her, right?
Yep. That was his hands, yeah.
So it was probably just him going, I'm a good drawer, but you want what else is good? Boobs.
We all love boobs. Like, okay, James.
But he never did it in his other like R-rated movies. There's no titties in Aliens or Terminator 2.
Because he couldn't use art as his scapegoat.
That's very true.
That sounds like a James Cameron.
What are you talking about? There was titties in Terminator. You see Linda Hamilton full frontal, man.
Oh, okay. Was there? I can't remember.
He started off with a bang, Get it?
There's some of that in this movie too, but we'll talk about that.
But later. I remember watching it as a kid, and I literally could have cared less about the Jack and Rose story. Of course, I think the performances are fantastic, and I think looking at it as an adult, it's like, oh, this is really good, and it still holds up really well. But back then I was like, nah, I just want to see the Titanic. Like I remember seeing the transition from the Titanic, at the bottom of the ocean to seeing it in 1912. And I think I cried. Like it was like goosebumps, tears. Like it was one of the coolest transitions I had ever seen on film. It was wild. And that's what I cared about. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to hang out with Bill Paxton because he's just the coolest guy ever. like just
Except
talking
for
about the
take damn
Titanic.
earring out of your ear.
What?
Ugh, take the damn earring out of your ear. I hate
That was
I hate
97.
that. I
My
know, I
dad
hate
rocked
that
that
on
till like
Hero.
2015.
Like it just makes him look not no, it makes him look like he's trying to be one of the cool kids.
Yeah. I mean,
He
he
could've
is.
just
He's
been
Bill
without
Paxton.
it.
He literally was like,
fucking
I
badass.
chased
Cool,
tornadoes
go
the year
for it.
before,
Yeah.
and now I'm going to hang out with the Titanic and hang out with this 100-year-old woman as she tells me about, boning Leonardo DiCaprio on the Titanic.
Something that I noticed rewatching it just recently was how much Bill Paxton is really good at casually not giving a shit about the love story behind it. Because if you watch it, you can see him just glaze over when Rose starts talking. But as soon as she brings up anything that has to do with the heart of the ocean, he's like, what? And then it's like interest.
Fucking in.
He's like Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained. It's like, you have piqued my curiosity. Now you have my attention. But yeah, I mean, this movie holds up so well. It doesn't feel like a movie that was made in the 90s. Especially when you watch it on Blu-ray. Like I bought the Blu-ray and they restored the whole thing. It looks so good. Like there are some visual effects that look a little wonky, but I'm like, it's 1997 and you can't judge it too hard. But this movie looks so good for being 25 years old. But I mean, for $200 million, it better look good.
There's that one CGI scene that's at the very beginning when they're just leaving port and Captain E.J. Smith, he's kind of he's standing actually over the deck, and it's a outward shot of like an aerial view of the ship, and it's CGI, and a officer, I think it's Murdoch, comes out on deck, but it looks like a Sims character. And now you will never see that scene the same way again. It's ruined. You're welcome.
There were some other shots where there was a shot where it's the ship is sinking and it's from the lifeboat that Molly Brown's on, and it's showing like people running on the ship, and some of them just look like black blobs that are just running. Like it's supposed to be a shadow, but it doesn't even look remotely like a person. It's just a black blob just running across the deck in light too. It wasn't even in the complete darkness. Ooh, all right. I guess that's what VHS quality. You don't catch those things, but when you upgrade it to 1080p, you see it.
There was a couple of scenes after, right before the ship breaks in half, where they're like all running up.
Oh,
and you see people hanging from the ropes, and I'm like, I don't think they're even there. Like I think they were just kind of like placed there afterwards. It looked like they were doing acrobatics. Like I'm pretty sure one person like went in the boat as they were swinging, like
clipped through.
Yeah, like not even clipped through. Like it just like they just went into the boat. They were still, in front of it, but I'm like,
yeah,
like
I mean,
these people.
Like I said, it's 1997. You're going to pick at those type of things, especially when it's upgraded from its original quality. But this movie still looks so good for 1997.
I had a couple laughs with some of this stuff.
Yeah, she's been all rude and shit about it.
Well, I mean, when they're on one of the boats and you can see the black background, and I'm like, they're outlined in green. Like that's a little obvious.
Also, water effects were not like as good as they are now. So like when you see the Titanic like slicing through the ocean, it does like the ocean doesn't look very good. It's just too flat. Like not flat like the ocean's flat, but like it just doesn't look like there's enough going on.
No, I agree, because when she was hanging off the back of the ship, if you look at the water, if you really look at it and try to critique the shit out of it, it doesn't look like it's going 22 knots. Like the ship looks like it's just going just casual running speed.
Yeah. So, as we've talked about, this movie was directed by James Cameron. It was written by James Cameron. It was edited by James Cameron, produced by James Cameron. He did everything on this movie. And when he was making this movie, he literally, I forgot what the idea was behind it, but he just was like, I want to do like Romeo and Juliet on the Titanic. And they're like, sold. And he's like, I'm going to need a lot of money to do it. And they're like, okay. They gave him $200 million to make this movie. And in order for him to make it the way he wanted to, he had to build his own studio. Like there was a studio specifically built for this movie. Like they built half of the Titanic to film this movie. Like, and the entirety of the ship sinking, not of course when it like splits in half and all that, the crazy stuff, but like when it's slowly sinking, that's all practical. It's only one side. They didn't, it's a lot of money you got to spend to build the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, he was all in. He wanted to make sure that it was as accurate as possible for the information they had at the time, but also, of course, you got to do some creative liberties to make the story a little bit more exciting, which some of those events bit him in the ass, because when you're playing with people who actually were there, who actually died on the Titanic, and you're fucking with their history, or you're making them look bad, it's not good. And one of them was Murdoch. The whole, he's the one who at the end of the movie is threatening to shoot people, and he kills a couple people and then ends up shooting himself. Well, that didn't happen, at least according to reports. Like, that's not how it all ended. And I guess the family wasn't too happy about it. And James Cameron actually apologized to surviving members of the family after, all that came out. Do you have any other info on that?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay.
First Officer Murdoch, a lot of the officers who were on board the Titanic don't believe that he did that. It was very out of character. And James Cameron did say it was more of a creative direct. Shots were fired on the Titanic, but when they came back and they recovered the bodies from the wreck, none of them had bullet wounds in them. So no one reported anybody getting shot. James Cameron did it just for creative effects, right? And like you said, he regretted doing that, and he wished he kind of made Murdoch more of just a background character and not focused in on that, for that exact reason, the families.
Yeah. That character, I guess a character like that, he was the one who did give the direction of trying to avoid the iceberg. So he, of course, feels guilty of the fact that when he finds out the ship strikes the iceberg and is sinking, he blames himself because it was his direction to avoid the iceberg. Because there was things saying like if the Titanic had gone directly into the iceberg, it would have damaged the ship, but not enough to sink it. Yes. And it would have survived to make it to New York, but it would have took I think it was they would have added 2 extra days onto the voyage. But it's like, how would they have known that? Like, who in their right mind, if you're on a ship this, like, it's a maiden voyage, it's cost a lot of money, and you see an iceberg directly in front of you, you think, guys, I think we should just go straight into it. Like, he made the logical decision to try to avoid it. Unfortunately, icebergs are deceiving. They're a lot bigger underneath the water than they are on top. And, just, it's one of those things, like, there was a lot of other factors in actuality this movie does not even play into why the 100%. Titanic, sank that night. And like certain people are portrayed in like more of a brighter light than they should have been. And I know Ashley is just dying to tell us about those people, especially Captain Smith.
Oh, don't get me started on EJ. So I do want to talk about the quick decision to go like hard to starboard, right? So the maneuver itself, if you were to take out time, was okay. Let me just back up here. So they seen the iceberg at the lookouts at 11:40 p.m. Okay, or no, correction, 11:39 p.m. So that means they had less than 37 seconds for Murdoch to decide what to do. Now, in that short amount of time, he did what he was trained to do, which is you got to try to quickly maneuver the boat to swing around and hopefully only hit or completely bypass part of the ship. So that's what he did in 37 seconds. That was the time frame. And what ended up happening was, because he slowed down and stopped the engines, that reduced the speed and also slowed down the maneuver, which is another reason why it hit the ship. But again, 37 seconds to make that decision.
Yeah.
Right? So I think faulting him for that is almost not fair. Like, you weren't there.
Right.
Understand?
It's not as instantaneous as like push break. It's like from person to person to person to person to person. Then some shit actually starts happening.
It's not like cruise ships now,
No.
where a lot of things are controlled on, on deck. Like they can control a lot of those things. Like if you're in that same situation now, it's probably a lot easier to maneuver around that because you're not having to communicate. They don't have boiler rooms anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it was all word of mouth until like the lookouts had to phone down, and then by that time when they got to the bridge, there was 37 seconds. Because it's the whole time. I explained it in my episode of Lullaby where I go really in depth, so I'm not going to go in depth on it on here because we don't have time for that. But there were so many factors, and E.J. Smith, in the end, was the catalyst to this problem. And the event could have been prevented, however, it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll wait.
Yeah, between like Captain Smith and then you have like Ismay, and just there's a lot of factors, and it's just unfortunate. And you see some of the things that go on in the movie, but like I stated before, like certain people are just kind of not. They're not the light isn't shown on them as much. Like, you were a contributing factor to this. But like they kind of swept it to the side, especially Captain Smith. I feel like they made him more of like, he's more of like a hero because the fact that like he's going to go down with the ship. That was just a common thing. Like, captains went down with their ship. That's just like, if that's the best thing he did, good for him. Other than that, he did a lot of stupid shit that helped contribute to what happened that night. So I guess
dude had a laundry list.
Yeah. Listen, if you really want to get in depth, make sure you listen to the episode of Lullaby on the RMS Titanic, because I learned things I had never even heard before when it came to this whole thing. So make sure, I'm going to link that episode down in the description and in the show notes. I mean, you got to listen to it and listen to everything else. All right. So this movie, but like I said, budget $200 million. It's been re-released twice after being released in 97. Like I stated, it was in theaters it came out in December. So December 19th, 1997. And I think it was like almost May or June when it finally came out of theaters. Like it was on top for most of that run, which is just wild. And then it was re-released in 2012 for the centennial of the sinking, and then it was re-released this past January for the 25th anniversary of the movie. So in total, it's about at like $2.2 billion, which is insane. It literally took over from the first Avatar, which was pretty funny because because I think Endgame had the highest amount at that point. And so every time a new movie takes over like that top spot, the director of the prior movie sends like a picture of their characters incorporated into whatever movie took over it. So it's literally like Marvel characters on the Titanic as it's sinking. Look it up online, guys. It's really cool. The first time it was Star Wars characters on the Titanic because the re-releases of the original trilogy of Star Wars I think were the highest grossing films at that time because they were released that same year. Crazy stuff. This movie has a stacked cast. Some though, I mean, this was like the beginning of their career. This was the movie that really put Leonardo DiCaprio like into the stratosphere. Like, he had done movies before, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, The Basketball Diaries. Of course, he was in what was the show he was in with Kirk Cameron? Growing Pains.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Before Kirk Cameron became crazy. We got Kate Winslet, who this was kind of the beginning of her career. What are you shaking your head at?
You don't even mention DiCaprio's first movie.
What, Critters 2 or Critters 3? Oh.
Yes, come on, dude, get on it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But we got Kate Winslet. She was when she got the role, she was 19. They didn't start filming it until she was like 21, and she plays a 17-year-old in this movie, by the way, which just makes it a little bit creepier in certain scenes. Actually, most of this
Boobies.
movie just makes it creepy. It's not even just the boobs. It's the fact
Dude.
that Cal's like 35 years old.
It was a different time.
It's still weird, man. Still weird. Billy Zane.
You didn't mention that apparently Leonardo DiCaprio was a producer in Orphan.
Yeah. No, we did in our Orphan episode.
I know, but you didn't this time.
Why would I mention it?
Oh.
He was a producer. He probably
Producers
did nothing.
don't do shit.
He probably did nothing.
He probably didn't, but
He showed up to set one time. I was like, cool, guys. All right, I'm going to go. Yeah, Billy Zane. I fucking love Billy Zane. I don't care, man.
Oh,
He's the
man.
Phantom. And to be honest,
Dude.
he's not. What? Oh, he was in Back to the Future Part 2.
No. I'm agreeing. Like he's the Phantom.
He's
yo.
the Phantom, yo.
Not like
No,
Ben
not
Affleck
that.
in Phantoms, yo. Entirely different thing.
Uh,
Wait, wasn't he in another horror movie? Wasn't he in the first Critters?
I don't
Billy
remember,
Zane
man.
he's in a lot of the Tales of the Crypt.
Yeah, he was in Demon Knight, which was the
Yep.
Tales of the
Expect me
Crypt
to
movie they
remember
did.
these things?
We watched one of these. She's looking. I
I
guarantee.
still don't
that
remember.
there's
All
a-
I know
there's
is
a
our
connection.
friends. All I know is our friends over at Movie Dumpster just covered a movie he was in called Red
Yes.
Clover, and it's awful, and he's not very good in it, but it's still Billy Zane, and we love Billy Zane.
Billy Zane plays in the original Critters,
Nice.
and I'm mad that he doesn't punch somebody and there's not a skull on their head. So that's a little disappointing.
Okay.
Movie
It's
ruined.
Phantom, dude. Come on.
I haven't seen Phantom in forever. I literally
He's got
could
that
watch it
ring.
like I've never seen it before.
He's got the ring and he punches people and leaves that little skull indentation.
One of my favorites, though, Kathy Bates, who plays Molly
yeah.
Brown. She is Molly Brown from,
She,
things I've read on Molly Brown and from
have
other
you
people who
seen
knew
pictures
her.
of her?
Yeah, she looks like her. She acts like her.
Yeah.
They said it was literally like hanging out with Molly Brown, and it just shows the commitment and how good Kathy Bates is.
She's great.
And the fact it's like these actual people that they're playing are like, the way that James Cameron is able to get them to like interact with these fictional characters and how they're like so flawlessly. Bravo. Frances Fisher, who plays Ruth, Rose's mom. She is awful, but I'm like, man, she's awful, but it's like, it's 1912. So I get it. Women literally had no rights. She literally was doing it to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria Stewart, who played Old Rose. This is like the only time where two actresses were nominated for playing the same character, but different ages, because Kate Winslet was up for Best Actress and Gloria Stewart was up for Best Supporting Actress.
Was 100 years
She
old.
won. She wasn't on screen a lot, but you believed she made you forget you were watching a movie.
Right.
And I think because they aged her for that role, she wasn't really happy about it.
She was
but
86
she
at the
was-
time.
Yeah, and then they added mole spots, and she was like, "I don't like that, Jim Cameron."
I don't even know why
But-
it's necessary. She's 100.
She's
You
just
can believe it.
Oh, she's amazing. She is so believable in that role. It's incredible.
But it's just because she doesn't look. All the pictures I've seen of her right before she died, she doesn't look 100. Like she looks
which
maybe
is
80.
which is wild because her character Rose was 100 in the movie, and Gloria Stewart died at 100, which was just like, whoa.
Irony.
Irony.
And I thought it was cool that she was the only one in the movie that was old enough to be alive
Oh yeah.
when the Titanic sailed. I
Yep.
thought that was pretty cool.
And Bill Paxton, because he's like best friends with James Cameron. He shows up in anything. This is the fourth James Cameron movie we've talked about on the show, and he has
Oh,
been
nice.
in every one, right? Because he was in Terminator. No, he wasn't in Terminator 2. No, because he died in Terminator.
damn
But he was in Aliens, man, and I really wanted him to say, like, when he opens up the safe and the diamond's not in there. I just wanted him to look up and be like, "It's game over, man. It's game over." Like, just so subtly too. Just would have been perfect, but we can't be that lucky. Bernard Hill as Captain Smith. David Warner, who I don't know if anyone knows, but he was in The Omen from 1976, and he's been in so many things up until his death. I think he died last year or 2 years ago. But he plays Spicer Lovejoy, who is another fictional character that was added to this. And he's just so menacing, but also just looking at this, like, this is the most cartoon, like he's a cartoon in this movie. It's him and Cal are just cartoons. And it's just so funny. But man, David Warner, he plays it straight the whole time, and he does a great job. He's terrifying. I would never want to run into him.
There's been a lot of things that he's played though, where he just plays such a good evil person.
Yeah.
Bad guy. Yeah.
Victor Garber as Thomas Andrews. And you know what? I have to applaud Victor Garber for having putting on a really good accent. Because he's an American.
Yes.
And he had to put, I think he was, because Thomas Andrews was Irish, correct?
Yeah.
So he had to have like that, had to have the accent. And it was pretty good because he was not like forcing it. It was very subtle, but it sounded really good. I was like, good for you. I love when I hear good accents.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
The scene where he's telling Rose about the lifeboats, he has this very subtle accent, like influx, where he just casually uses his voice to act as if he's calm, but to portray like the seriousness of the situation. And the Titanic historians that were on set said that it was incredible. Just watching them film that scene gave them goosebumps. So they applauded Victor for that.
All right. Sorry. I just want to correct myself. He's not American. He's Canadian. My apologies. I had to look it up because I just said it and I was like, I didn't even look up if he was. He's a Canadian.
We just lost a viewer. Way to go.
Yay.
Ashley's like, bye.
She's just...
Hey, at least I looked it up, okay? Jonathan Hyde plays Bruce Ismay. We've talked about Jonathan Hyde on the show before when we talked about Anaconda, which I believe came out the same year or a year before this. We have Susie Amos Cameron now because she married James Cameron shortly after this came out because James Cameron loves marrying the people he does movies with. We stated before, he has a kid with Linda Hamilton. So, but yeah, she plays Lizzie Calvert, the granddaughter of Rose. We have Louis Abernathy, who plays Louis Bodine, who was he was Bill Paxton's like scientist buddy there, the guy who was working alongside.
I liked him.
Wanted to squeeze our one fuck word into the movie for us.
He wears Snoop Vision.
Yep.
Love it.
Danny Nucci, who played Fabrizio, who is another fictional character added. He was Jack's friend. And Ewan Stewart, who played First Officer Murdoch. And there was another one, Mr. Fantastic from the original Fantastic Four is in this movie. Ian Grufold. He played Fifth Officer Lowe. Click on his name, Dan. Okay. You'll know who I'm talking about. You've seen the original two Fantastic Four, right? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. He played Mr. Fantastic.
Thank you. She has the mouse. That's why.
Oh.
Get on it. It wouldn't be the first time that you've stole it from me.
Nope.
So yeah. So I mean, like I stated before, James Cameron, he spared no expense with this movie. He wanted to make sure he spent all of that $200 million and made one of the greatest movies probably ever made, when it comes to visuals and just being authentic as much as he could. The fact that he was so invested in the Titanic, even after he made the movie, that he's taken many dives down to the wreck itself. I think it's even stated that he has spent more time on the Titanic than the people who were actually on the ship.
Accurate.
That's how many dives that he's been on. He actually made
33 dives in total.
Crazy. And he also made a documentary about the wreck, where it was a mix of his dive footage plus like digital rebuilding of the Titanic. And he's put out a bunch of documentaries for the 100th anniversary of the sinking back in 2012. And he just released an addition to that documentary this past year for the 25th of the movie, where he was proving the door scene, where it was like, oh, Jack could have fit on the door. Well, he made sure to prove it wrong, that there was a lot of variables in order for Jack to survive. And it was one of the biggest things was, how did the Titanic break? And how did it go down? And of course, in the movie, when it breaks in half, the back of the ship is the one that goes down first, right? Because they're riding on the front, or are they riding on the back? They're riding on the back.
They're on the stern when it goes down.
Right. So the bow goes down and it kind of drags it up so that the stern goes up in the air, and then it goes down. Well, there was a lot of controversy behind that because there was people who were there that stated that's not how it happened, but then there were some people who were there who stated that the way James Cameron did it was the way it happened. It was a whole thing. So he literally, like, there's an entire hour-long documentary of just him proving how the Titanic, sank. It's wild stuff. Check it out. There's a lot of content out there on the Titanic. And it just shows how passionate James Cameron is as a filmmaker to not just make a film like Titanic, but to continue doing research on something when it's like somebody could just do a movie on something like this and then just move on to something and just completely ignore everything. Like, yeah, I did it. It's over. I'm going to move on. Like, he was doing this stuff while he was making Avatar. It's like, you're crazy, dude. No wonder it took 12 years for him to make a movie after Titanic. The dude's crazy. But before we hop into the plot of this movie, I'm going to open up my drink of the night, which ironically is called a 1911, which is the year the Titanic was brought out of where they were building it before they finished it up. And it's an orange creamsicle, and it's fucking delicious. So I figured it was the perfect drink.
It's not the only 1911 that's in this movie, but carry on.
It's not.
Oh, right. Yeah. Here's the thing. I saw that scene. I was like, did they have that kind of gun back then? Like, was that was around? Okay. I figure. I mean, that's why you're here, Dan. You're the gun expert.
Actually, the first auto-loading pistols, the first mainstream auto-loading pistols actually appeared in the late 1800s.
Okay.
Very late 1800s. But yes, 1911. John Moses Browning making that shit. But I mean, it would have been a brand new gun at the time that he had that.
So we're going to get to the plot. Ashley, you're going to interrupt me anytime you have something you want to say, add to what we're talking about with any of the historical stuff or with the movie itself. And we're going to go through. Are you guys ready for it?
I'm going to do my very best not to interrupt you because you can't see when I'm about to start talking.
Just start talking and I stop talking and we go. What do you want, Dan?
I didn't state this because we didn't bring it up when we talked about it. Because we usually, how was your first experience with the movie? And I always forget to say what I thought of the movie. I just want to say this real quick. Everybody else is all gung-ho about this fucking boat show, all right? I just got to put my 2 cents in. I actually enjoyed it. I was very apprehensive, but I actually liked the movie.
Hey,
so
this movie is keeping me from going on a cruise.
Oh, it would be all right if we go to be warm in the water, and we'll just have to worry about sharks and shit. Like, USS Indianapolis. That's what it'll be like. We'll just get eaten by sharks instead of freezing to death.
The wild fact about the Titanic is, like, compared to modern cruise ships, the Titanic is tiny compared to it. Like, if you look at comparisons between, like, the biggest cruise ships now and the Titanic, which at the time was the biggest made. It's tiny. It's ridiculous. Yeah. My brother told me that. I was like, nah, that's not true. The Titanic was huge. And I was like, oh shit. These new cruise ships are monsters.
They're ginormous.
But that's the thing is, like, there's so much less put into them to make them operate. Like 1912 when you're trying to get these ships to, like, I mean, that's the beauty of James Cameron, his work on this movie is the fact that he takes us on a journey through the ship as they're starting it up. We get to see from, first class to third class to the boiler room and these dudes sweating their asses off, shoveling coal, making sure this thing goes. It's just a wild process. Now it's all electronics or, fuel or whatever, but it's crazy. So this movie opens up to, quote, old footage of the Titanic at port. It's modern filming. It's literally the when the ship goes off, they just put a sepia filter over it. I was like, it's old footage, guys. And I was like, nah, it looks too good for that. I just love it though. And then of course you hear the melody of My Heart Will Go On, which you'll hear throughout this entire movie, to the point that when you hear it at the end in the credits, you're like, oh, man, I just want to hear Celine sing. Okay, I'm just waiting. I've been waiting for 3.5
I've
hours.
heard this song. No, I've heard this song so many fucking times. I'm sick of the song.
No, we wouldn't even let it get to that point. Like, credits hit, like, turn this fucker off because I'm done with it.
She didn't even want to sing it when James Cameron approached her with it. She's like, no, best thing she ever did in her career.
Mm-hmm.
And she's Canadian.
It was good at the time, but I hate the song because I've heard it so many times.
It's just overplayed, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So, actually, before we get into the back to the plot, we didn't talk about the fact that this was nominated for 14 Academy Awards. It won 11.
That's your
list.
On the back of this, on this vintage VHS, it shows every single award it won. It won for Best Director, Best Original Song, Best Original Dramatic Score by the late James Horner, who we have talked about a few times on this show. As we stated, he passed away back in 2015. But his score for this movie, iconic. It's amazing. And it sucks that we're not going to be getting any more brilliant scores from him in the future. Best Costume Design, Best Art Direction, Best Sound, Best Cinematography, Best Sound Effects Editing, Best Visual Effects, and Best Film Editing. Wild.
It deserved them all.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely insane. So we get that old footage in the beginning, and then we jump to the future where we see them exploring the wreckage of the Titanic, and we see Bill Paxton and his crew, and they're going through, going over the ship. Here's the thing. Is this actual footage of the wreckage?
Yes. It's a bounce between a model miniature and real footage. And it's actually kind of easy to tell based on how much bacteria and micro is in the water. That's kind of how you can tell.
Yeah, because I have actually watched one of the videos of when they first found it, and it looks a lot like, especially when they're going over the bow of the boat. Mm-hmm. Looks just like that video.
Yeah, but I've seen the miniatures too, and they're fantastic. Miniature work.
Yeah. The miniatures are amazing.
But I know Robert Ballard, who was the head of the group that that rediscovered the ship. Was it 85 or 86?
1985. September 1st, 1985.
They were at a Woods Hole, which I've been to the institute that they were out of, because I don't live very far from there. But yeah, he helped get this footage, I believe, for the movie, because he actually was involved in some of the behind the scenes, especially with the wreckage footage.
He went down with James Cameron, and some of the footage was used from when they went down in 1985, and they accidentally found the Titanic.
Imagine that. Yeah, I don't even remember what the initial mission was, but yeah, it's wild. Just be like, yeah, we just, hey, look at that.
I can sum it up if you're curious.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Dr. Robert Ballard, he went on a secret mission for the U.S. Navy because they were looking for 2 American submarines, the Thresher and the Scorpion. And the Navy sent Dr. Ballard to search for these wrecks to see if Russia had anything to do with it. And then he ended up completing it 12 days early. And then he decided, well, since we're out here, since we're spending money, I have 12 days since I'm in the area that the Titanic went down. And then he ran very specific. It's actually amazing watching him talk about it. And he ran horizontal and lines, and he ended up he found the boiler. It was at like 2 a.m. He found the boiler, and then they discovered the ship, and everybody was celebrating. And then they realized that this is a gravesite, and they were ashamed of how they reacted.
Wild. And the fact is, like, they discovered like one part, and they're like, oh shit, it's only half of it. And
yeah, the fact that debris field was insane.
Yeah, because like if you look at where it's not like laying down perfectly, like where you could like just kind of push it together and the ship's back. It's like I think the bow is like they're facing each other, like the way that it fell. Like I think one fell and it like spun. Yeah, it's weird. I'm trying to like show you with my hands, like what the fuck I'm talking about.
Yeah,
we can see you.
Yeah.
I know, but like my description I'm not doing it justice, Angela.
Yeah, you flip the left side topwise.
Yes. Yep. It did things.
Hey, I assume that people are supposed to be able to, see through the sound, because, I've had I've had things that I show off and nobody can see them.
This is what I'm talking about, where my brain, once we go live, just starts working at half capacity.
You got a lot to think about. It's okay.
So
it happens.
I had to make this note. The drone that they use is called Snoop Dogg, and I was like, hell yeah. And their whole thing is they're at the Titanic, but their main mission is to find a safe. And so they find the safe and they bring it up to the surface and they open it up and it's just a bunch of money in there and not what they were looking for. And of course, like they're celebrating too early. They think they found it, got cigars lit up. Come on, guys.
Yeah. And can we just discuss, like, and this is sarcasm when I say it, but the immense effort that went into the archaeological exploration of said safe. He just opens that thing and cracks his hands in there. I mean, come on.
I would not be putting my hands in there.
Things been down there for at that time 84 years.
Just crunching up old 100-year-old paper. Like,
wouldn't it just deteriorate in his hand? Wouldn't it just like crumble to nothing?
Surprisingly, it wouldn't.
Really?
Only because of the safe itself.
Oh, okay. But like if you had found something like loose and then you tried to bring it up, it would just kind of just crumble to nothing. But because that's why it was preserved in the safe, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why they can't bring up certain articles from the Titanic, because it'll just turn to mush.
It's just the fact that when he puts his hand in there, it's all brown, like
rust.
Definitely,
just holding it, throwing it. He's like, fuck this stuff.
I would be more worried about like cutting myself on something and like, oh, you're in the middle of the ocean. Like, where are you gonna go to
get a tetanus shot?
Yeah, like you definitely need a tetanus shot after that. Like, whoa.
Oh man, that's just that's the passion of trying to find this diamond. But they find a picture of a nude woman, and so this is when. What's his name? What's Bill Paxton's character's name? Why am I blanking on characters' names?
Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton. When Bill Paxton,
where's that? Brock
Lovejoy?
Lovejoy. No, that was Cal's henchman. Lovejoy.
Oh, yes, sorry.
No, that's okay. But yeah, I'm just gonna call him Bill Paxton. When he discovers,
she just told you what it was.
Brock Lovett.
Brock Lovett. I just love it.
Oh, it was the love. The love threw me off. Okay, good.
Smooth sailing from here, people. So yeah, he sees the picture, and
a technical term.
He goes on the news to say he discovered this picture, and it just like. Of course, Rose and her granddaughter's like, of course, that's the channel they're on. So they hear something about how they discovered this picture, and Rose is like, oh my.
It's not surprising though that an elderly person has the news on.
That's true.
Just because every elderly person that I have come in contact with, like, yeah, I was watching the news. Like, okay. You go watch your news.
I just found it funny. She was just like, he sees the picture and she just knows it's hers. She's like, oh my.
That was the most exciting moment of her damn life.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, she says that. It was the most erotic moment of my life.
At the time.
I had somebody that drew me like that at the best point in my physical embodiment.
And just plasters it on the television like, here it is!
Like, I would definitely be like,
that's boobs.
So, yeah, so she calls up and talks to Lovett, and it's like, oh, who's in the picture? And she's like, oh, that's me. And so they're like, well, come on, we want to talk to you.
Yeah,
because his whole thing, the reason he does is because he sees the diamond. She's wearing the diamond that they're looking for. So of course he's gonna like try to call out and see if anyone has any information on it, and to get the actual person who's in the picture, win-win.
Because she's like, something about the heart of the ocean. He's like,
finding the heart of the ocean.
Yeah.
He's like, told you wanted to take the call.
Yeah.
And his like colleague there, he's not a fan. He's like, she's lying. There's no way she was on the ship. He's talking about she was an actress, and he's like, yeah, of course that was her job to just make shit up. So like, I don't know if we could believe it. She shows up and she's just got her entire house there. Like she's like, I brought everything. She's got fish. She's got her fish bowl there. All these
They take like 7 suitcases off. Like,
suitcases
damn,
from
how
like
much
the
does she
30s.
have?
As far-fetched as it is, it seems surprisingly kind of realistic because my grandma was the same. If she came over for
gosh.
like a weekend, she had every photo album, and it's like, Grandma, you're here for brunch. Like,
Yes. Oh my gosh.
You're gonna be
my
going home in a
granny-
couple hours. What are you doing?
My granny will bring an extra suitcase just because she knows she's gonna buy stuff when she's here. Just so she has.
Just have that empty suitcase just for souvenirs.
Yes.
So Rose tells them the story after Bodine, who is the colleague, he retells the sinking like she doesn't know what happened. And he tells it in the most like just awful way possible, just so aggressive. It's like, relax,
Yeah.
guy.
He like tries, it's kind of condescending. Like he's excited about it, but you wouldn't understand. But because we're
Right.
filming a movie, I should probably say it.
Yeah.
Like
I think it was
love some of
mostly
her comments
yeah.
because she's like, yeah, that's how it happened.
Yeah. I don't remember it being, or she was like, my events are slightly different. But yeah, I feel like also he doesn't believe she is who she
Yeah.
is. So he's just
True.
being a douchebag about it.
Yeah.
But she, of course, gets to see the videos on the monitors of different parts of the wreck. She actually gets to see some of the pieces that they brought up. Like they took up a bunch of the stuff from the room. So she got to see her mirror, and the clip is what like triggers her. And the clip actually belonged to the actress who plays the granddaughter. It was her clip, and she kind of like was like, "Hey, let me can we use this?" And so they, had to make it look like it was from the time. And yeah, it was like her triggering thing because it was the thing that she had been wearing it pretty much for the majority of the movie.
The odds of that. So I'm taking the time to think of like the odds of all of this happening if
Right.
it were real. You happen to find the naked picture in the safe of the girl of the necklace you happen to be looking for, who just happens to still be alive, and you happen to have her hair clip.
It all just fell
Like the
right in
one-
his lap.
Some of the few things they're like, oh, this is from your stateroom. Like, you only brought this up from one room. Like, you couldn't
Saw
have
the
found.
safe. That
Mhm.
was it.
Yeah, like the safe. It was the be all end all. That was it.
So she tells her story, and we get the transition, which is one of the, like I said, one of the greatest transitions ever put on film, of them showing the ship, the wreckage, and it transforming into the ship in 1912. And then you get James Horner's amazing score playing behind it, and everybody's all joyous. Everybody's waiting to get on the ship, and it's just chaos. You get to see Rose get out in her, outfit. You got the hat. I love the when we first see her face, because she's like wearing the hat and it's down, that she kind of looks up. Great shot. We get to meet her douchebag fiance, Cal, played by Billy Zane, and his henchman Lovejoy, who's just, like I said, these guys are cartoon characters. And her mom, who is she just wants everything to go according to plan. And then you find out she's 17 years old, and you're like, this is just weird. But I get it. It was the time. It's still weird.
Oh.
We then shoot off to a card game being played by Jack and Fabricio. And these two Swedish guys, Norwegian guys, I don't remember what country they were from. One of them was named Sven, so I'm guessing Norwegian.
I'm
And
assuming. I know in our
In the subtitles, I kept bringing up Swedish.
yeah, it kept telling us what language they were speaking in, but not what they were saying.
so yeah, they are playing cards, and the wager is a third-class ticket on Titanic. And so Jack and Fabricio end up winning the game. I love though when they win and you think like the guy's gonna fight him, but he just turns and punches his partner because his partner is the one who wagered the tickets.
Yeah.
And yeah, we get they have to run to the ship because they only have 5 minutes to get from where they are to the ship. And this is where you get the, them wave. I'd love something like Jack's wave. He's like, bye, everybody. He's like, I don't know anybody here. Bye-bye. See you later, guys.
Tradition.
Yeah. Everybody's got to wave goodbye to somebody. Yeah, we get to see Captain Smith. And I don't remember which crewman was this. Murdoch he was with when they first.
Who brings him the tea? Yeah, this is that bad sim CGI I was telling you about.
Yeah,
I believe it was Murdoch.
Yeah, there's so many. There was
Light Taller maybe.
Light
I'm not sure.
He was pretty prominent in this movie.
He was a survivor.
He was a survivor who would later help out. It was a comment somebody had left. He was a big part in the Dunkirk attack during World War II.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Light Taller.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so you get the shot of Jack going to the front with Fabricio and the whole "King of the World," which then James Cameron used in his acceptance speech for winning Best Director, and people made fun of him for it. I thought it was pretty funny. So, Rose is the daughter of you find out is a former rich family because her father, I guess, was wealthy, but they don't have much money anymore. So she needs to marry into Cal's family because he's really wealthy in order for them to survive. You get a whole conversation later about it, and I might as well just mention it now because there's no point in talking about it later. Pretty much Rose has to marry Cal for money because if they don't, then they're pretty much going to live on the streets, according to the mother.
Because the dad
left him a bunch of debt when he died.
Yeah, left him debt.
Yeah, and then Cal has to get married to inherit his millions.
Right. So like it's one of those things where like Cal, you can tell Cal doesn't love Rose. Rose doesn't love Cal. It is all based on just the benefits of, what each other is going to get out of it. So Rose, this is when Captain Smith, he gives the orders to get everything going, and you get the whole journey through the ship, going from first class down to third class and then down to the boiler room. You get to see like all the mechanics of Titanic as just these massive gears just going and steam and everything, and just the inner workings of the ship, and it's really cool. So we then get the fact that like Rose hangs out with like everyone who's important to this ship. So like they hang out with Bruce Ismay, who is one of the high executives of White Star Line.
Yeah, he was the chairman of White Star Line.
Yeah, and he sucks. And Rose is great though, because they sit down for dinner at one point, and she says a small dick joke, and I love it because they talk about why did you name it Titanic, and he just because of the grand wanted to be the grand size of things, wanted to be the biggest, and she's like, it feels like you're compensating for something. Oh, it was something about Freud. She stated something about have you ever heard of and he's like, who's Freud? Is that a passenger?
Yes.
So and she also hangs out with Mr. Andrews, and Mr. Andrews a lot cooler. He seems like a really cool guy, and he's the designer. So he's the one who pretty much came, why the Titanic looks the way it does, all the ins and outs of it, and pretty much is very confident in the ship. Of course, it was labeled as unsinkable, which was a poor word choice for this ship. I feel like it was doomed from the start. And there was another name that they gave the ship that they stay in the movie. I can't remember.
What part?
Oh,
they were
walking
with the lifeboats, and that's when Rose is talking to him about how there's not enough lifeboats, and he literally confirms that. He's like, "Oh, there's only half." Like, oh, that's terrifying.
Less than half. Yeah.
Less than half, and it's like, well, that's terrifying. It was like, yeah, but the ship's nothing's gonna happen, so we don't have to worry about it.
I do want to clarify something, because a lot of people do think that White Star Line was the one that said that their ships were unsinkable. It wasn't White Star Line. It was the media, because Captain E.J. Smith, he was the captain of another RMS White Star Line ship, which was the Olympic. That, fun fact, he crashed into another ship by almost pulling the same maneuver that the Titanic does. And it caused a gash in the side. But because it only flooded 2 watertight bulkheads, it was able to get back to port. So when media seen this, they're like, oh my God, because these ships have watertight bulkheads, they're actually unsinkable. So then the media labeled White Star Line as unsinkable. And then Bruce Ismay, being that guy, was like, yeah, you're probably right.
This thing is unstoppable. Yeah, because Titanic and Olympic, they were built around the same time, correct?
Yes, like within like a year and a half, they were one completed, the other one went. And then the Britannic was after.
Right, yeah. And there's one picture. There's only one picture that I've ever found of both the Olympic and the Titanic together. They actually are on the water together, and I really want it like framed. Like it's such a cool shot.
It's a beautiful shot. I think those ships are very pleasing to the eyes.
Yeah, especially because they're pretty much identical to each other. They actually had to paint the hull of the Olympic white to differentiate the two ships while they were building them. And then, of course, when they finished them, they painted them to look pretty much the same. They just, one says Olympic, one says Titanic, as they do. So, yeah, this is, we meet Molly Brown, and she's what they call new money because her husband like found a silver mine or something like that. And so she's not part of like old money. So like not a lot of the rich ladies like associating themselves with her, which I would love to hang out with Molly Brown or Kathy Bates. Either or I'm cool with. So yeah, then we get the small dick joke, which was just, oh man, I laughed out loud on that. Jack saves Rose from killing herself because she just does not want to live this life. She is feeling trapped. She has no support from anyone. Her mother, Cal, is definitely just doesn't want anything to do with her other than the fact that he's going to get money out of it. So she said, well, I think it's time for me to go. So she goes to the back of the ship and she is going to jump, and Jack shows up. And he casually tries to talk her down, but then he like retells a story about him falling through the ice when he was a kid. And also he like takes his shoes off and his jacket, which will play into something right after this. And he ends up talking her out of it, but she slips and he saves her, but it catches the attention of people to the point where the people think that he's assaulting her. But she stands up for him. She's like, no, that's not what happened. And to the point, though, where after everything's all said and done and he gets invited to dinner, Lovejoy is like, oh, so it was a spur of the moment thing, but yeah, you had enough time to take off your jacket and your shoes. Like, oh, fucking Lovejoy, you son of a bitch. So this is when Cal gives Rose the Heart of the Ocean. Well, he kind of just shows it to her, lets her wear it, and she immediately does not like it. Because she even states it like in the present day section of the movie that it was heavy and just bulky. Like it was just not something you'd want to wear. And he threatens her in the most calming way possible, where he's just like, you're going to do pretty much whatever I tell you to do, where you're going to make this work. Like, I don't want to hear any issues, or you're going to have a big problem. But in just such a calming, subtle way where it's terrifying because Billy Zane plays it off so well.
I don't think they could have had a better actor for that character than Billy Zane. He portrays this, this is going to sound bad, this like toxic masculinity that is almost, here it comes, this is where people go, shut up. It's almost sexy, and he gets away with it. You know what I mean? Thank you for shaking your head, yes. But he's so good at playing a villain, like you guys have mentioned earlier, and I couldn't picture a better person playing Cal.
Yeah, he definitely kills this role. It's so sad though, like his career kind of didn't go much of anywhere after this movie. I mean, he's continued to act up until today. I mean, he's still acting, but he's very like he's in B-rated movies, straight to video. Like this was like his last big movie, at least from what I've seen.
He suffered like Buffalo Bill syndrome, like the guy that played Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs, where he did the role so well that people thought that was actually him, and then he couldn't get roles except for like Flubber.
I hate that. I hate when people go, I can't cast this guy because of a role he played. So you mean you're not going to cast him because of a job that he did so well?
So well, exactly.
It's so stupid.
Exactly. Like when you find somebody that plays a role so well that you hate them, you've done your job.
Mm-hmm.
Have we seen the actor who played Joffrey in Game of Thrones since his
Exactly.
role in that? No, because
Like-
everyone looks at him as Joffrey, and it's like, no, he's a damn good actor because he played that character so well. And I didn't even see the damn show. I just knew who he was and how good he was in it and how everyone hated him.
But you find that person that plays that role, and yeah, you can cast them in every bad guy role, but then you get somebody that is like Robin Williams, and you never know if you're gonna get that comedic bad guy until you put them in that role. You have to put them in it to find out what they can do.
Robin Williams,
and I
1
think
hour photo.
Yep.
I immediately thought of that.
Exactly.
1 hour photo or Insomnia with Al Pacino.
You find out what they can do when you put them in it.
That's true.
It sucks that people get kind of like almost blacklisted because of a role. Like, okay,
yeah,
cool. I'm glad I did my job so well. I can't get jobs anymore.
And I hate it. Like, give them a chance.
The historians on the set, on the Cameron movie set, said that Billy Zane was method acting. So when they would walk by him, they would see him with that like pompous attitude. And they talked to him, and they realized he's just method acting. But a lot of the extras didn't know that, so they thought he was a dick. Yeah. But no, he's just a really invested actor.
I hate method acting. I really do. I just, especially current method acting, and hearing from about different actors, especially Jared Leto. I feel like he's like a prime example of like bad method acting, where it's like you just take it too far, bro. Like, stop it.
When you take it to the point where people are like,
like, I'm uncomfortable being around you, and it's not because of your role. It's because you're just a weirdo. Like, just get away from
you can method act and be in that role, but when you start making people uncomfortable, you may be taking it a little too far.
Yeah.
And that's where Billy Zane was fine. He has like resting bitch face. But as soon as someone would come up and talk to him, they would realize how amazing he was. And that's what the historians said. They're like, when no one's talking to him, he looks like he's just bitchy. But as soon as they say, "Hey, Billy," he's like, "I'm Billy Zane." You're like, "Oh, you're awesome."
Yes.
I just feel like a lot of this is really hitting home for me, because I feel like I look pissed off when I'm not talking to people, like when people don't know me, and it's just how I come off.
Me
like,
too.
I'm just like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
I have a girl that I work with, and I've actually had a customer come up and ask her what's wrong with her, and she's just like, I have RBF. It's like, at least you admit
it's
to
a curse. Sometimes it's not
face.
It's so funny.
It's genetics. Leave me alone.
So we get to Rose and Jack having a conversation, but then to the point where Jack just straight up is like, do you love him? And she's like, that's a rude thing to ask.
Ask that of me?
Yeah, and she's like, I think I'm gonna go now. But then like takes his drawings and looks at him. She's like, wow, these are really good.
Yeah, she's like, what is this?
Yeah, I would have literally been like, excuse me, can I have those back, please?
Yeah, what gives you the fucking right? Just because I saved your life doesn't mean you could steal shit from me.
Yeah.
And then to say, these are actually quite good. It's like, oh, thanks, bitch.
Yeah.
Right.
And then like the fact, like trying to insinuate that he like slept with one of the models that he was drawing, because like, oh, well, there's you drew her, many times. And he's like, yeah, because she was just a good model. She was a one-legged prostitute. And she's like, oh, okay, never mind then.
Oh, that changes everything.
Does it?
Apparently.
At that time, Dan, in 1912.
You still got the other. You're not standing up while you're doing it anyway. No, in theory.
It was the time, Dan.
Style at the time.
Because they don't even show the picture though, but there was a picture in there of like showing she only had one leg.
It's like, oh,
okay.
Man. What did I just think of fucking Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo?
Oh no, I know what
you're talking about. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ashley?
I do, yeah.
Yes!
No! I can't unsee it now.
He like kisses up her calf and comes off.
Just reminds me of an episode of Friends when Joey like throws a girl's leg into the fire because he didn't know that she had a wooden leg.
Oh Jesus, dude! Now you just caused a rabbit hole. I just think of that.
No. This episode's gonna be 4 hours long, guys. Oh.
It is. the edition Joey goes to, where he's trying to make himself look uncircumcised or circumcised.
Yes, and he uses like the Play-Doh and the bologna thing that just falls off during the.
So fucking good.
Oh god, I could literally talk about Friends all day. So none of the rich ladies.
This movie's 3 hours long. So,
I know. Will this episode be as long as the movie? I really hope not. None of the rich ladies want to hang out with Molly Brown because she's new money, as we stated before. Ismay tells the captain to get the ship to go faster, and he's like, "I feel we're doing pretty good, guy." And he's like, "I own this ship. I blah." And I was like, "You're a fucking idiot."
The captain now.
Yeah,
he's like, dude, we're ahead of schedule anyway.
Yeah,
what the fuck's it matter?
It's for headlines.
Like if they would have stayed the course that they were at, they probably wouldn't have been in this predicament.
Yeah. Well, they had also gotten reports way earlier about the fact of the Berg fields.
They got like 6 warnings beforehand.
Yeah, there were 7, and
7.
The first one was on the 12th. Like, it was coming in hot.
They definitely should have.
Don't get me started on that.
Godzilla was in one of those.
He was.
Yeah.
We ever cover King Kong versus Godzilla? I'm going to make a Titanic reference.
Imagine that. Be wild. So Jack tells Rose about his exciting life, and she is jealous. She wants to have that free-spirited life, even though he's poor. You know, he still has an exciting life because he's not restrained by society, man. He's not restrained by the man.
She doesn't care about money.
No, she just wants to have fun. She wants to live her life. She's 17, by the way. Yeah, and then they have a spitting contest. See who can spit the farthest. Yeah. And
which, by the way, the historians hated. They didn't like that scene. They didn't think it would fit. But James Cameron was like, no, it'll work for later on in the film. And they ended up saying, yeah. So that was
it does have a payoff. So you are right. Yes.
I can't wait to get to that scene because there's a little fun behind the scenes of that. But yeah, they get caught by the mom shows up, and I like how Molly kind of like takes Jack in. She's like a surrogate mother to him because every time he needs help with something, she's kind of there to be like, "Come on, I'm gonna get you a suit. Hey, you got some spit right there. You might want to wipe that up."
Which is
she's
gross.
Like she's his intermediate between the two cultures.
Yeah,
but she does mention that he's like her son.
Well, yeah, because the suit is like he fits into her son's suit.
Yeah. So she's like projecting onto him like that's her kid. I'm assuming that her son wasn't with. It was just her and her husband.
It was
or her.
No, it was just
period.
She was the only one. She didn't have anybody with her.
She wanted to go on that cruise by herself.
Yeah, she was a trailblazer.
Yeah. She was awesome.
She probably, well, for the creative sense, related with Jack because she was new money, right? And she was treated different, and she saw that Jack was going to get treated different.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's a gem.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So yeah, she fits him up for the dinner. And then he goes out, and we get the first scene of him kind of waiting at the staircase. And Cal just walks right by him, like dick he is. And to the point where Droz comes down, and they meet with Cal, and Cal turns around like, "Oh, I didn't even recognize you. You almost look like a gentleman." Like the thing is, it's like Jack is so like he just expects all these comments from Cal, so he doesn't like react like I feel most people would, just like fucking punch you in the face, man. Instead, he's just like, whatever, man. You say whatever you want. I don't care. Like, because he goes to the dinner and like they're trying to show him how to be like proper when he eats. He's got the whole layout with the 3 forks and all that. And he's like, oh, what do I do? And she's like, just start from the outside, go in.
And I would be the same way.
I would have too. Oh no.
Why is there so many silverware? Like fork and knife and spoon. Like, give me that and I'm good.
Yeah. And it just gets to the point where he's having the conversation. He then gets into a conversation with everybody at the table and he gets comfortable. So he's like starting to do things like naturally to him, like, eating the bread a certain way or just talking with his mouth full or whatever it may be. But everybody's kind of into it too. And Cal's just like, just over there with his fucking face. Shut up, man. He didn't say anything. I just still tell him to shut up.
tosses him a lighter when he's pretending not to care. He's like, "Oh, I got you."
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love the contrast.
Did anybody catch the Nickelodeon line that Jack says?
We talked about this.
Yes.
We talked about this.
We had to actually look it up.
I
knew it
I
was the
did
word.
too. I did not
It was a
know.
word before it.
I did not know it was a word, like an old.
Because I
like
had
an
to
old word.
rewind it.
I was
I
like,
know,
Just
like,
say
my
whatever
wife
he
caught
said.
it. We were watching, and he said, "I saw this on at a Nickelodeon show once." And
Leave it to
my wife's
her.
like, "Did he just say Nickelodeon? What?
Yeah.
What?" And so I was
Yeah.
like, "I don't know. I didn't hear it." So I rewound it, heard it again. Then I had to look it up. Yeah, it's just an old. It's a show you would pay like a nickel for. Yeah.
Nickel for.
So
And
cool.
a Melodian or whatever
Yeah,
was
it's between a nickel and a melodeon, and they meshed them together. And
Ashley, did you know that?
No, but thank you for telling me.
I
knew it.
I'm glad we all discovered something.
I knew
So I was like, wait a
Nickelodeon
minute.
I knew it was a term before, like it was a network. Somebody didn't just pull that out. Of
I
their
know.
I
ass.
know it was
was
based
like,
on something. I
are
just never
they-
knew what it meant.
I didn't know what it meant either. So that we had to
I was
look
like,
up.
how long has Nickelodeon been around?
That was my
That
first,
long.
because I heard it and I thought, I'm like, damn, I should really go back and check this one out, but I never
Yeah.
did.
You find out Rugrats. You know, we grew up watching. This is a reboot from like the 1920s or some shit. Like, what the fuck?
1911.
Yeah, see? You got to get back
Well,
further.
no, it could be before the boat though, because the term didn't show up to the late 1800s.
Well, it's like Nintendo. I was like, have
Yeah,
they
they've
really
been around since the
that long?
1800s.
And I'm like,
Oh,
I had to read into that too. So
and cards and all
they were
sorts. Yeah.
cards.
We then, before the dinner though, I skipped past it, but Rose is introducing Jack to all like the rich people. And we meet John Jacob Astor, who was the richest man on the boat, and it was true. And his wife was 18.
5 months pregnant.
Yes,
Wild.
that was his second wife.
Yeah. And he
That
was
was
played by
Mistress,
Eric
right?
Braeden.
No.
Was it who took? Oh,
Hang
sorry.
on. I'm pretty sure
I may
it
be thinking
actually
of a different
was.
scene.
No, it says something about it being his mistress, but I think it was his second wife.
I mean,
I think they played it off as him being,
Yeah, they make it kind of a scandalous thing that happened in the
because
movie.
like
Yeah.
J.P. Morgan was supposed to be on the boat, and Hershey Milton was supposed to be on the boat, and like somebody else was supposed to be on the like super rich people were supposed to be on this, but they missed the loading or whatever, and they were touted as something.
too busy doing their fucking jobs.
No, it was like
the.
the almost group that was on. Shoot, I just
It's kind of like
I had it
it's
pulled
kind of like
up,
with
though.
9/11, like Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, and Mark Wahlberg were actually supposed to be on one of the flights.
But
There was
realize-
probably
see,
other
this
ones
one
too,
doesn't
but
have
it was
it.
just like it's one of those things where they
Yeah,
both had
it was-
missed their flight.
the almost
Which
group.
is
It
wild.
was something like that.
But
I had it pulled
he was
up.
played. John Jacob Astor was played by Eric Braeden, who I thought was the guy from Beetlejuice who played Alec Baldwin's boss. But actually, he's the guy who's been on like Young and the Restless for like 50 years.
and
Oh.
plays like the same character.
I'm like, I was like, is that no? And I just looked it up and I was like, oh, that's that guy. Because my mom used to watch Young and the Restless all the damn time.
Yes.
So we then get Jack leaving
Find it.
because all the men are going to go do their thing where they hang out, smoke,
Yeah.
talk about business.
Brandy and cigars.
Yep. And Jack's like, I'm going to go, but then slips Rose a note and says,
Yeah,
hey, if you want to go to a real party, come meet me at, I don't remember what time it was, but just meet her at the clock or meet him at the clock.
7:30 or something.
Yeah.
I would definitely want to be at the real party.
Hell
I
yeah.
don't-
This party
I
was
mean,
awesome.
drinking.
You get to hang out with
yes.
a bunch of you get to hang out with a bunch of Irish people and drink a lot.
And they know how to drink.
I'm
I
in.
got to hang out with my fucking relatives, man. I'm out. Fuck that. Let's go
So
on
they-
a room for a while.
So yeah, they go to the bottom of the ship and there's they get to dance.
No, I have to find that.
Rose does a very painful ballet move without ballet shoes. No wonder it hurt. You don't do that move without your shoes.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I've tried that before. It's not. I used to be able to do it as a kid. What she did, because
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh, I could do that too." I thought that was kind of cool.
and
Mm-mm.
and Lovejoy catches them, Because of course Cal sends him to spy on him.
I hate to be the Debbie Downer for this, for the people who enjoy the romance aspect of this movie, but the Titanic was so segregated according to classes that Rose wouldn't have even been able to meet any third class passenger.
Yep.
And they wouldn't even allow a first class, let alone second class passenger to even go down into third class. They weren't even, third class wasn't even allowed on deck.
I believe it.
Wow.
It's sad, especially when it comes to the sinking. But
class of society, brother.
Yep. So Cal is pissed because he finds out where Rose went. He tosses a table. And originally people thought this was an ad-lib scene by Billy Zane, but he was like, nah, I couldn't have just done that on the spot without her knowing, especially with all the shit that flies off that table. It was kind of one of those things where it was like she knew it was going to come, but like not know exactly when. So her reaction was kind of genuine. And this is when Rose's mom kind of breaks it all down. The fact of like, we were left, your dad left us with debt. So like, you need to do this. You need to marry Cal so we can get our lives back together. Okay. I know this isn't what you want. I know this isn't the most ideal thing, but it's the best option we have. She still sucks. This is when Rose walks with Andrews and they're talking about the lifeboats. And he tells her the fact that there's less than half the lifeboats needed because, well, I feel like we're not going to need them, you know? And the whole thing was that it would have too much clutter on the ship. So in order for it to look really nice, you got to make some sacrifices. And that's the thing that'll save lives or, you know, at least attempt.
Fuck the poor.
Good job there.
That's pretty much
Brucey.
So John Jacob Astor was on his honeymoon with his second wife, who was 28 years younger than him. Yeah, it says he had been divorced less than 2 years from his first wife.
This really does sound like my family.
Yep. And all I know is that he got his wife onto one of the lifeboats and tried to get on himself, and they actually like forced him off. And he ended up being one of the casualties.
He just needed to be like the other guys that made it on that dressed like women.
That didn't happen. Sorry.
His wife could have.
Nope, it didn't.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest.
No, she's correct. It is a myth that goes around, but they didn't find any bodies or people on the Carpathia dressed. Yeah.
Huh.
I'm glad you pointed that out, though. That's important.
That is something I had never heard.
That is totally something I believe people would try to do.
Yeah.
So it's shocking that it didn't happen.
I mean, Cal does not dress as a woman, but
he does the whole kid thing.
Yeah.
I got a kid, damn it!
Like,
the only thing she has left.
He does the whole thing where he takes a kid and he expects like they're gonna take both of them. It's like, no, they're just gonna take the kid.
Such a dumbass.
Like that whole point, I was like, what's he gonna do when he gets to where they're going? Like he's just gonna like, oh, there you go. Here's your kid.
Isn't this your kid? No, I just found him.
Bye.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the witnesses and survivors said that when it came to the last like 30 minutes of the ship sinking, there were so many kids because they were scared. They were running away. You were losing them in the crowd. You couldn't hear anything. So I could imagine that probably could have happened. But it actually wasn't as difficult to get on a lifeboat as they were making it in the film. Just nobody wanted to get on a lifeboat.
Huh.
I explain it in my episode of Lullaby. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess you see that later. No, you see all like the rich folks. Like, why do we got our? I don't remember what fucking name they have for them. They're life preservers. They have some fucking old timey term for it. But anyway, they have the life
it's not
preservers.
Like life jackets. It's something else.
Yeah, it's like something else. I don't know. Anyway, but they're all like inside and like just inside of it. And, like they're getting all the boats ready, and then like nobody's life belts, and like nobody's going outside. And, like, I mean, of course, in hindsight, we could look at it differently, but
yeah, but I think a lot of them were like, oh, you're just making a big deal out of nothing.
Exactly. A lot of the survivors, well, they believed that the ship was unsinkable, right? And it was cold outside, and the only people who really felt the ship hit an iceberg were those that were very close to the starboard side when it happened, because higher out of the water, they didn't feel any of the turbulence. And when it came to like getting people onto lifeboats with like this engine stopping, that caused a pressure buildup, which means all the steam had to be released from the smokestacks. That sound is beyond the word deafening. So for two people to lower a lifeboat, I was thinking of life preserver, yes, a lifeboat, they were having trouble even screaming at the other person. So that's another reason why it was going down jerky, right?
Yeah.
And people were seeing this and they're like, well, the ship's not sinking. Like, and then plus, like huge rescues weren't a thing back then. They didn't think that it was even plausible. So like, okay, so we're gonna go into the lifeboat and we're gonna sit in the ocean for hours. No one's gonna rescue us. So it was like, well, I might as well just stay on the ship as long as I can.
Yeah, it's insane how it all went down, especially like when it all happens and they know they only have a couple hours from impact to it sinking, and the radio control guy comes out and he's just like, yeah, I got a hold of the Carpathia, they're the closest, 4 hours away, and the captain's like 4 hours, and he's just like, well, we're fucked. Like,
Yeah.
people are going to die. And it was one of those things where like that's I think why Andrews, one of the reasons why Andrews doesn't even bother trying to get on a lifeboat, because he knows like he's partially to blame for everything, because he knew as soon as he knew the ship was going to go down, he's like, I'm going down with it, because if I know people are going to die, I'm going to die with them. So before all that, we then Jack kind of like brings her into the gym and is like trying to persuade her to leave Cal. She's like, no, get away from me, and leaves. And then like she changes her mind drastically and meets him at the front of the ship. And I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone who's big into boats. Like, I'm sorry, I get bow and stern confused all the time. So it's the front of the ship.
Bow is the
okay. Well, I'm gonna forget, so I'm just gonna say front of the ship or back of the ship. So I apologize to anyone who's like,
I can't get it's starboard and whatever the other. I can't left and right. I mean, I still have to do
14 times in a row, and I will forget after you tell me the 14th time.
I still have to left and right with my hands because I'm left-handed. So I'm like, okay, like.
So yeah, she meets Jack at the front of the ship, and she kind of changed her mind, and he brings her up, and she's flying, flying, and then they make out. And
that's gross.
We then transition back to.
Damn it! I'm sorry. Her chuckle is caught me. Fuck.
We then transition to the back to the modern day, and this is when everybody is kind of just like in awe of the story. Yeah, they're crying, except for Bill Paxton.
Come on,
like Ashley said before, he doesn't give a fuck about any of this. He just wants to know where that damn diamond is.
Like her granddaughter's like, oh, this is the first time I'm hearing this. Her jaw's dropped and everybody's like this to her. I'm like, get away. Like if I'm telling a story, I'm telling you a story, I'm funny. Like, get out of my face.
So we then go back to the Titanic when she asks Jack to draw her like one of his French girls.
Like that was a big difference between her still loving Cal. She
didn't. Yeah, it was a whole thing.
I know she didn't.
She was trying to play the game.
She knows she has to marry him.
Yeah.
From going from that to, oh, I'm gonna get naked in front of you.
Yeah.
Like
I think of it this way, like you said, playing the game. It's like when you have to sell like Boardwalk to somebody in Monopoly.
No.
To get that 3 space thing, right? So 2 spaces less hits. You get the 3 space. I don't know, just Pacific Island. Whatever color it's not 2. You have to trade it. So you gotta do that thing. You don't want to do it, but you gotta. So you talk yourself into making it okay. That's a horrible analogy.
Great analogy. No, I was just like fucking great analogy. Oh man, but it was one of the she says that, and it's one of the things where she's like talking about how she's gonna wear the diamond and only the diamonds, and he's just like, oh okay. And so she comes in,
time
and
seeing boobs.
Probably.
she disrobes, and it's one of those things where he stutters on what he's trying to tell her. Like he's trying to tell her to go sit in the chair, but instead, like he's trying to tell her to go to the couch. That was on purpose. Like that was an actual slip up from Leonardo DiCaprio to the point where James Cameron's like, I like it. Let's keep it in there.
Yes, like I've read that was a whoopsie.
Yeah. Also, when Kate Winslet found out that she was going to be doing a nude scene with Leonardo DiCaprio, instead of kind of doing it that day, she just randomly flashed him one day.
Okay.
All right, break the ice, I guess.
What's done is
Apparently,
done.
she did it more than once.
Oh.
Just imagine this dude like eating and just looks over and he's like,
Why are you naked?
Here's something I've always wanted to point out, because I remember being in like middle school and high school and people talking about Titanic, and of course, being a teenage boy and there's nudity. It's like the greatest thing ever. But like no one talked about, like everybody used to like downplay the fact that like Kate Winslet's a beautiful woman, and people used to just not give her the credit she deserved. All right. Kate Winslet. Gorgeous. People used to always like, people used to make fun of her. Like she wasn't pretty, or like she was ugly, and I was like, "What are we watching? What is wrong with you?"
The same movie?
The fuck is
She's
wrong
beautiful.
with you? I don't know. Maybe it's just.
I just wanted Billy.
I just wanted to point that out.
Well,
Billy Zane walks in naked. He's like, Jack,
I would
me like one of your friends.
I would still be as intrigued as.
But he's got like the heart, whatever, the heart of the ocean, just like on his dick. And he's just
I need no.
Yes, we're like it's dangling over his codpiece. Absolutely.
I need Titanic bloopers, and that to be one of them.
Yeah, like, he's ready, and he like turns around, and it's Billy Zane naked walking in, and it's not. Oh my god, it'd be fucking wonderful.
Yes, I need that.
Yes,
the deleted scene everyone wanted.
Oh,
absolutely.
Man. Yes. So
I mean, you got to see Leonardo DiCaprio's butt in Romeo and Juliet. Like, why can't you see Billy Zane's
I've seen that too. I've seen that movie.
in Titanic?
I don't know. I'm surprised.
Reboot.
Yeah.
Dude, no.
It's still a butt. It doesn't matter what year it's in.
No, see, we'll talk about here in a minute. There's another scene coming up that's going to lead to some shit.
I mean, here's the thing. This movie is technically a reboot.
Yes.
It's a historical reenactment.
Yeah. I mean, there was the biggest one I think before was A Night to Remember, which I read the book as a kid. Such a good book. So so he draws her, and then they have to run away from Lovejoy because he shows up randomly, but he forgot his pictures. We then cut up to the deck where the captain is being told about the icebergs. He's just like,
fuck nature.
It seems fine. It's like, should we slow down just in case? He's like, nah, we're gonna stay at this course. I'm gonna go to bed. So if you need me, that's where I'll be. And it's like, oh, and just like Murdoch's face, he's just like, oh, okay. Good night.
He's like, in fact,
he's already terrified. Something bad is going to happen.
But wasn't there a rumor that he had been like drinking or something?
Everybody's been drinking on the Titanic.
But no, he's the captain though. But he had like been drinking or something, and that was the cause of him needing to sleep or whatever. Like he fell asleep, didn't need to sleep, but fell asleep. I don't know if that was even the same. That could have been a different captain of a different boat. I want to say that that's something that I read.
There's a lot. There's a lot about Captain Smith that you can catch on Lullaby, the Fear podcast. So we get the Lovejoy chasing Jack and Rose throughout the ship. They even go downstairs to the boiler room, which I find funny, and to the point where they get into like where the cargo hold, where they have like everybody's like valuables down there. There's like cars and just massive things. So they decide to go into one of the cars and they do the deed.
Do the dirty.
That's when you get like the iconic like sweaty hand on the window and
they're breathing hot air. That hot air,
So I got a comment on this scene. Obviously. Damn it.
Satire humor. Here we go.
I love that. It's the fact that we cannot see your face and we just hear the giggling.
I just hear it. I'm like, it just throws me off. I'm like, fuck, it's great.
Sorry.
No, it's great.
No.
So listen, I have a fact. So when like here it is. Like it's the scene where the hand hits the glass, right? Uh-huh. I was like, I've been thinking about this whole fucking podcast. Like, how is this actually playing out? And it's one of two things, and I think the first one's correct. Obviously, the thing is it's supposed to be, Kate Winslet's hand or whatever. Mm-hmm. I refuse to believe that, because as rambunctious as this woman is and how outspoken she is for the time, there's no fucking way she's a bottom. It's never going to happen. It's totally DiCaprio's hand, because he's like nutting so hard because this woman's just destroying him, right?
I mean, he is so exhausted when they cut back inside the car. He's like...
And like how
like wow,
how stifled he is. She just walks up.
She's just casually just laying there, like
she's just smoking a cigarette.
That was great, Jack. And he's like, he just acting like he just ran a fucking marathon.
Hold on, having a heart attack.
But it makes you think about all the times you've ever had sex. It's like, have I ever hit the wall?
Okay,
yeah, exactly. Like how fucking good is he at giving it this? Because although I've never thought about it until right now. He didn't deserve to die if that's what's going on, because there was he put more effort into that orgasm than he did trying to get on that damn door. Can I get an amen?
Yes.
Amen.
So, secondly, I don't know, what the whole thing is, but I'm doubting the dude pulled out, right? Like I don't even know what that word means. But anyway, listen, dude.
We're just digging a deep hole. We're digging it.
We ain't weigh an anchor on this motherfucker, dude. We are in.
I mean, being married to this one makes you think a lot about sex scenes in movies.
And secondly, it shouldn't have been like his hand. This way we could have confirmed it was Leonardo DiCaprio. It should just been like his ass. Just on the window and just like streak down.
No, you definitely couldn't get away with that. Then you would have seen the dongleberries.
I don't know. It's all about the camera angle. I mean, listen, if this dude wants to show off, like, if you have, like, a pair of cheeks and, like, a small little bag here in the bottom that's streaking up, people are going to, like, overlook that. I assure you.
He would have to, like, I'm going to go by physics here. He'd have to, like, scrape up. He couldn't go down, because then you would lose the balls with the butt going down. But if you went up...
I know, that's true. So it's just, like, it hits and it goes up.
I hate that I'm scientifically breaking this down.
No, I think it's wonderful.
Listen, we break down sex scenes probably more than any scene in movies, if there are one.
I try my hardest. I gotta get my one.
No. This is because this is right where they hit the
It was right after
iceberg.
It was right after. Yeah, when they went upstairs.
I said that they had sex so hard that they made the ship hit the iceberg.
They did. It's like, stop steering fast enough. Oh, fucking down there, damn it.
If the boat's not a rocking, don't come a knocking. You know. Yeah. And everybody did.
Yeah, because this is because right after the scene, they go back up and two of the crewmen are talking about like binoculars and like, oh yeah, I haven't seen them since we left. And it's like, that's not good.
Yeah, if you are the lookout, you need to have all your equipment.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you really want to know a really interesting backstory on those binoculars, it goes back to E.J. Smith, him crashing the Olympic, and a series of events that I discussed in my episode. I don't like plugging my episode, but I'm not trying to blow up your episode with a bunch of random facts.
We're going to plug the shit out of your episode in this episode. So.
I mean, we just heard DiCaprio and shit plugging stuff, so you might as fucking well.
Plug something hard.
Drink.
No, but I was curious about what. Okay, so they're like binoculars. So there's like one pair of binoculars on the whole boat, and apparently nobody can find.
Yeah. So I'll try and short story this as much as I can. So when E.J. Smith crashed the Olympic into that old ship, or into the other ship, he was going on the Titanic to act as a captain, but because all the crew for the Olympic couldn't work on that ship because it was getting repaired, EJ had to work them into the crew on the Titanic, which caused a shuffle around in officers. And the officer that they ended up having to get rid of was the one who had the only key to the binoculars inside of the locker, but because he was so pissed off that EJ Smith kicked him off, he just walked out. He didn't do it intentionally. He just completely forgot and took the keys with him. So the keys were left in basically port, and so they didn't have any.
Wow.
And they brought it up during the Titanic trials. Yeah. Like, the story behind the Titanic before it even left like port is insanity. It's like the first, I want to say 40 minutes of my Titanic episode. It's crazy.
That's a massive fuck up and a half.
Like, it was cursed to begin with because like people died while they were building the ship.
Yeah, but how many people died making ships back then?
A lot.
But yeah, a lot. But like when you have like this succession of events before it even, like, I wouldn't have.
Yeah,
I would have been like, bye. I'd have sold my ticket.
They didn't have their OSHA overlords to make sure that fucking.
Yeah. So
I mean, there was a lot of not safe working conditions for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I hate looking at pictures of people that are building like skyscrapers and whatnot, and like they're not even hooked in. They're hooked into nothing. They're just sitting there eting lunch.
Yeah, it's got this sandwich. Like, what's down there? I don't know. 60 stories before it hit the concrete. Like, okay.
Good.
So yeah, they go upstairs because they're running away because they actually sent like crew guys down there to try to catch them, and they get up to the deck, and the crow's nest guys are like distracted. Like that, they're trying to play it off like they were distracted a little bit, and so they maybe caught the iceberg just a little too late. I mean,
I hate that they did them dirty that way.
Yeah,
I really did. They were looking hard because they couldn't see the growlers in the water.
Yep. And of course, this is a tense scene, and when they tell them that the berg's there, they gotta go hard. I think it was a hard port, right? So
port is to the left.
Yeah. So they go hard port, and of course, like it's not just them just turning the wheel and turning the ship. Like they gotta like send the signal down there with the fucking levers and all that. I'm like, this is a process. And
they're all my tea break down there.
Yeah. Like, oh shit!
Because they have to send their signal down to below deck.
Mm-hmm.
And then the below deck has to relay it to whoever can hear. So whoever can hear has to relay it to the next person.
Yeah.
And like...
Yeah, and that's why it took... They seen it at 11:39. They hit the iceberg at 11:40. Like that 37 seconds that Murdoch had was... The fact that he was able to just come up with something is impressive.
Yeah.
Because I would have panicked.
Oh, absolutely. And you could tell he was slightly panicked, especially in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, especially like when everything is all said and done, you see that the ship is just going directly straight into this iceberg, but it's like slowly moving to the left. And he's just like, turn. And then to the point where it's like, it looks like it's going to miss it, but then you just see the bottom just tear into the ship. And I think the worst is not just like everybody's feeling it, like Andrews feels it. His like chandelier shaking and everything, but it's everybody down below because it tears into the ship and it's just water just comes rushing in and just takes people off their feet. And then of course Murdoch has to make the decision to shut all of the watertight doors, which would trap some. Like if people can't get out fast enough, they're trapped in there.
That whole scene where they're trying to get out and the one guy almost gets his legs taken off. I'm like,
I gotta ask, since we've all seen this movie, and those of you listening, I've seen this movie so many times, and every single time I watch it, I think they're miraculously not gonna hit the iceberg.
Right?
Does that happen to you guys?
Every time.
Every fucking time.
You see it.
You're rooting for him. Like, come on.
I happen to get the LimeWire version where they messed it up and they miss it, and that's the end of the movie, and it's all good.
Because you see the iceberg and you see the front of the ship, and you're like, oh, the front of the ship is like 5 feet from the iceberg, but you also don't take into account what's below deck.
Yeah.
85% of an iceberg size is below the waterline.
Yeah.
Like, I
Which
hate
is terrifying. That's terrifying.
I hate looking at those pictures because you're like, shit.
That's how Godzilla fit.
Because you see, like, what, 5 to 10 feet of the top of an iceberg, and then there's like 25 to 30 feet below, and you're like, yep.
Yeah, the iceberg they hit was 400 feet wide and 60 to 80 feet in height, because it was higher than the crow's nest, which is one of the reasons why it took them so long to see it, because it was pitch black out. There was no moon, barely any stars, nothing to reflect the water hitting the bottom. So that scene, when you're watching it and you're like, what is that? And then all of a sudden you're like, ugh, like stomach dropping. I freaked myself out right there. That was really scary.
And when you know color theory, you know white does not reflect like it should.
Yeah, they saw nothing there. Like, even like that was another thing I talk about in my episode, is the peculiar weather conditions that night. It was just a force to be reckoned with. It was inevitable, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's also different accounts on like how it actually hit the iceberg, because like in this, I feel is like the most gentle way possible. Like it goes alongside the iceberg, and it just tears into it. And there was actually reports that it actually hit it to the point where the ship actually like kind of tipped in a way, and it like rode the iceberg, and then as it got back, like as it left the iceberg, it like straightened itself out. I was like, that would have been even more terrifying. I mean, this whole night is terrifying, but that would have been way worse. Like, there's actually paintings that people have done of the Titanic literally like on its side as it's hitting the iceberg. I'm like, oh my God.
Like, actually physically knowing what this could be like, nah.
I think the choice they went with in the movie, just making it the more gentle, just reassured people's lack of preparedness, even though they seem like they are, but they're not really or full grasp of the situation.
Because the guy that designed the ship, he's just sitting there drinking his wine, and he's like, well,
that's something.
That's
James Cameron. He discussed it with the historians. The lot of the survivors, they do not recall it actually hitting. Like, it was so subtle that it was like a little hum. Because Andrews, when he was talking to the captain and Lightoller was near him, he recalled being shocked that it hit an iceberg because he didn't feel it. So that scene where they show the glass and the thing going, like the light fixture moving, he didn't even know. He just happened to go outside and be like, what's going on? And that's how almost everybody felt it. It was really crazy, actually.
I can relate to this because when I was in high school, we had an earthquake, and I just assumed it was helicopter or plane because the house shook and I could hear things, but I just assumed that it was a helicopter just by the noise it made.
I like make
words. So I just assumed. So I can see why they assumed that, why he would assume that him sitting there and his wine moving like it did was nothing to be worried about. Like, I didn't find out that it was an earthquake until the next day.
No, go ahead.
I mean, you got to think how large, even by the time, but even today, it's still big. A massive boat has a shit ton of material to absorb that amount of shock. So
yeah, but just the fact that I was sitting there and I find out that it was aftershocks of an earthquake, like that's kind of.
I heard about it. People like, we had some aftershocks here. I didn't feel shit.
Yeah, because there was only a couple people who recalled being in third class and feeling it. And then James Cameron kind of makes like an ode to this, where the one girl's like, oh, it must have been just like the propellers like shifting or something moving down in the bottom, because that's kind of what it felt like. And the higher up you go in the ship, the less likely you are to feel it. So when they were trying to get people on the lifeboats, and everybody was like, what are you talking about? Like, we didn't hit anything. Right. And there was only like 5 people that actually seen the ice on the front of the bow of the ship, And that's where James Cameron shows the people kicking it around.
Yeah, they were like playing with it.
Yeah, ballsy.
I mean, I would
Figured you'd break your foot, you know.
I would assume that, it didn't feel anything. Oh, there's ice. Like, we hit it with the top of the boat, and they've touted it as unsinkable. When you're at this stage in life, you assume that the media knows what they're talking about.
And your exact reaction is how all the passengers felt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because our next scene is when Jack and Rose decide they're going to go confront Cal and say, "Hey, we're a thing now. Like, we're done." And this is after the ship strikes the berg, and they go in there, and then of course Lovejoy plants the diamond in Jack's coat that Jack actually stole to begin with, and so Jack gets taken away. And then you have one of the guys from, one of the crew guys coming through with the life vests, and it's like, oh, it's just a precaution. I don't think it's anything serious because, like, no one knew. Like, no one knew what. It was just, oh, yeah, we were just told by the captain to pass these around and all that stuff. But everything's fine. And there were some people who just refused them because they just didn't believe it. I'm not putting that on. I'm too good for that. And so, yeah, Jack gets taken away. He gets locked up in just a random room. And Rose, at first, even though later she's like, I believed you the whole time, but it just took me a bit to finally. But I don't remember. What the fuck are you talking about, Rose? You believed that he stole that diamond.
You believe the person that you're in love with, or
Yeah.
you believe the person that you're gonna get money from. Like, yeah.
So this is when Andrews meets with the captain, and Ismay's there, and they're talking about the fact that the ship would be fine as long as it didn't. Was it 5 compartments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
5.
2 of the back ones and 2 of the front ones.
Yeah. So because it was more than 4, it's fucked. Like,
in the front consecutively.
Yeah. And Ismay's in the back, like, in disbelief. And he goes, "This ship can't sink." And he's like, "It's made out of iron, sir. It sure can."
I love that line. I love that they gave the builder of the ship the line, like, "Look, you fucking idiot. This ship is made out of solid iron. It will sink, and it's going to."
Yeah, I love that line. Is like one of my favorite lines because it just showed like and then Ismay, of course, being the slime ball he is one of the survivors, ending up getting onto one of the lifeboats, and just his kind of his shame the whole time when he hops in there.
Eye contact.
Yeah, because Murdoch is the one who's there, because Murdoch's the one who's like putting people that shouldn't be going onto the lifeboats. And yeah, he sees Ismay and kind of just stares at him the whole time. And he would later, he'd have to, after the sinking, when he got back, he had to go in front of Congress, I believe. He had
to testify in front of U.S. Congress.
And he pretty much was shamed for the rest of his life.
They fed him to the dogs.
Yep.
Because his rationalization was, oh, well, there was no women and children around, so I figured because I'm the chairman of White Star Line, I have to give my account of events that happened, which is true, but at the same time, it's like, buddy, you did it in such a scuzzy way.
Yeah. He sucked. So this is when, you get the realization that the ship's going to be going down in probably 2 hours, maybe a little over 2 hours. And because I think it officially goes down at 2:20 a.m. on April 15th. Because that is the time that the clock is set at the very end of the movie. Also, that is the time that Andrew sets on the clock when you last see him, which I thought was a nice little touch. But it's just, I mean, the rest of this movie is just the chaos of the sinking. And to be honest, as much as it is a dark, this is a, reliving this and seeing what might have been the case of how things went down during the sinking. This was what I looked forward to with this movie, just seeing the aftermath of the Titanic. And it's terrifying. Imagine being on this as it's going down in these frigid waters in the North Atlantic. I think the water was at like 28 degrees or something, 26 to 28 degrees at the time, which hypothermia
is exactly that. Yeah.
Hits you at like, was it 5 or 10 minutes? It's not even that long. James Cameron actually, when he was doing the test on the door, the whole would Jack fit on the door thing, they tested it in like 50-degree water because the testing pool, they couldn't get that cold. And yeah, the only way that Jack could have survived is if he would have had to like stay on all fours and not let his stomach touch the water. And he might have survived. Yeah.
He could have done it.
But here's the thing, and a lot of people complain about that. And it's whatever. But the fact is he tries to get on the door. And the door almost flips. So his rationale was not the fact of him trying again. He just wanted to make sure Rose survives. We're jumping forward, but whatever. That's just what we do.
We all know what happens. If you don't know what happens, then you don't know history, period.
So
the ship sinks.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the whole some point. People's rationale of why they've never seen this movie. We know how it ends. Well, I knew how it ended too before I saw it.
Oh, watch the damn movie.
Logic.
Why do people watch movies about wars? You know how those things end.
That's true.
I mean, it's the same logic.
Unless we get some like Quentin Tarantino type alternate history. Glorious movie, Bastards. Dude. Yeah.
That's what we needed. We needed M. Night Shyamalan
to
do this movie, because then no one would have died. It would have been an alternate universe where Marvel is there, and it just would have been nuts.
The end of this movie.
It would have been a dream or something.
No, it's all inside of like a snow globe.
Oh yes, snow globe.
like in Men in Black. It's just aliens playing with marbles.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's on a cat collar.
So
I would have just.
Awesome.
It would have been the ship goes down as like it goes down, it just disappears, and then immediately just like reconnects. It just shoots out.
Bob's back up.
Like fucking the Flying Dutchman in Pirates of the Caribbean. Just
no, it's like the one show that I was watching, where it's all the ships come up and it's like different realities and different ships.
Oh, what the fuck is that show?
I just watched it.
Is it a Netflix show?
I think so. But it's like...
What's the boat it takes place on initially?
Don't ask me.
You're the one who watched it. I was just came in. Like, look at all these damn boats.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah,
was it a Pearl Harbor documentary?
No, not documentary. It's
sorry,
I'm gonna have to find it.
While you're looking it up, let's just have it be. No, what it would have been is if it was M. Night Shyamalan, it wasn't an iceberg that sunk. it would have been like some Lovecraftian old god that had sunk it. Oh fucking yes! No, dude. Oh my god, we should just watch Deep Rising. We should just fucking watch Deep Rising.
We're going to.
Dude, it's about a boat being sunk, about a giant monster.
I'm on a boat,
and it's got Benny in it.
Yeah, because it was directed by the guy who did The Mummy.
Wonderful. Anyway, different movie.
So Rose, she decides that she's not going to get on a lifeboat. She's going to go find Jack. And this is when she is having to wade through the water and get to his room. And I love this whole thing where she has to pick up an axe because they can't find the key. So she's got the axe and it's like, I need you to go practice over on that bureau over there. And I need you to hit it, and then I need you to try to hit for that exact spot again, and she misses completely. And to the point where he's like, well, I guess we're just gonna go with it. Oh fuck.
That's enough practice for now.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, like I said, most of the rest of this movie is them trying to escape to the top of the ship. We're seeing like the chaos.
She closes her eyes when she does it, and I'm like,
oh no.
No helping.
Yeah, you're seeing how like third class is treated, like they're being locked down, at the bottom of the ship, like they won't let them up. Yeah, it's just it's tragic. and it's sad seeing like, because you know that this is probably how it happened, how these people were treated. And they some of the third class passengers end up escaping and getting to the top of the ship. And then of course we get the whole scene with Murdoch, who he's played as like a guy who could be paid off, because like Cal pays him off to get him on a boat and get us some other people on the boat. And then Cal like changes his mind and wants to go save Rose, but then comes back, and Murdoch kind of like has a change of heart and he throws his money in his face. But then he's like trying to get people back, because I think his name was Tommy. He was one of the Irish guys who was at that party downstairs, who he gets shot by Murdoch, and there was somebody else who got shot too. And then he just kind of sees what he's done and ends up shooting himself, which, yeah, we talked about this at the beginning of the episode. It's sad that this was all played out for just entertainment purposes to try to be more dramatic when this was a real person. It would have been okay, and I say okay, if it was a fictional crew person.
Yeah.
If this wasn't a real person. But the fact is it was. I mean, I'm glad James Cameron ended up apologizing for doing it. But yeah, it's still a tough scene to watch. Because this guy just goes through it, man. Like, out of everybody on the crew, this guy goes through it the worst, because he is there when the ship hits the iceberg. He is the one who has to give the call to try to avoid it, but then finding out that it's going to sink and like feeling like it's his fault. This guy got it the worst of anyone in this movie. So
I was talking about was 1899.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that Netflix one. Okay.
Yes.
Is that something about the Bermuda Triangle or something like that?
Yes, and I hate that it's only a one season show.
I was gonna say, I haven't heard a single person who had a bad review about it. So as soon as you said it, I'm like, is it a Netflix one? Because that was gonna be my guess.
And I watched Netflix. Well, I haven't watched Hulu lately because Hulu sucks on our internet.
That's a whole other story.
Our internet service provider it's dumb. But yeah, like that was a great show. And if you haven't watched it, please watch it.
I will watch it now. I will.
So good. And I just hate that it's only a one season show.
How many episodes are there? Sorry to go off track here, but
it is. Was it 8?
I don't know, probably.
Right, I think usually Netflix shows are 8 or 9.
It was 8. It was great.
Okay, I'll watch it.
I gotta catch it too.
Please watch it.
So yeah, they've just chaos, absolute chaos. People jumping off the ship. You see that I love
rudders and shit.
Yeah, well, no, that's a little bit later when the ship starts to it's filling up with water more, and it starts to raise the stern up. And
between the propeller and the person that hits the railing,
yeah, there was a lot of just boink.
If I knew I couldn't survive something, I would want to go out fast. I wouldn't want to suffocate. I wouldn't want to drown, and I would not want to catch myself on fire. I would probably go out like the guy that shot himself in the head.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're seeing everything from like them trying to lower the lifeboats. Of course, they're not loading a lot of the lifeboats to full capacity. You're even getting to the point where even after everything's said and done, only one lifeboat went back out to try to find survivors, when you had all of these other lifeboats that had half capacity just avoiding going back, because they just felt like, because there was one point where they like trying to pick up survivors. Oh, it's the lifeboat that Molly Brown is in. Molly Brown and Rose's mom.
Molly Brown.
Yeah, and she wants to go out there and find survivors, and like, no, they're going to swamp us. Of course, the guy tells her to shut up and sit down, and she does. And I was like, man, I wanted her to like punch that dude in the head.
As much as I agree with you, I got to play devil's advocate here. So there's kind of like an unwritten safety rule with, like, for example, I scuba dive. And one thing that they say is if the person next to you starts to drown, you have to let them pass out. Because when people go into panic mode, they panic and they can kill you too. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, you want to go back and save these people, but are these people smart enough to be in that state of mind and let people on safely? So it's very, very tough.
Because it's hard to save someone that's flailing as opposed to not.
Yeah. Because the one lifeboat that went back, he waited till the screams died down to reduce the amount of people to would come back on the boat. But in the end, they only ended up saving 7 people.
Yeah. It's crazy.
The double-edged sword, man.
Yep.
So, yeah, Rose ends up being put back on a lifeboat because Cal, plays it like he's going to put Jack on a boat with him, but it's not going to happen. She decides she doesn't want to leave Jack, so she jumps off it, reunites with him. I love the whole thing where he gets back with her and he's just like, "You're so stupid, Rose. You're so stupid." And you get the final meeting with Andrews, who's just kind of standing there in one of the ballrooms. And, they just kind of look at each other like they know what's going to happen next. And before the last thing you see him do is change the clock to 2:20. And it's, this is when it gets really crazy. Cal ends up finding a child, tries to get on a boat. Then you get him getting on a boat and like fighting people off. Like he's got an oar, he's like swinging at people because that part of the ship is in the water now. So he's like fighting people off, and then his Lovejoy gets it fucking rough, man. He's at the point where the ship splits in half. Yeah. I'm like, damn, he got it bad. He's old now, like, fuck. But the ship splits in half, and one part goes in, and this is terrifying. So the stern goes up, and then it like cracks, and it just comes back down again. But also, you see Fabrizio die. No, one of the smokestacks is just, oh man, he gets taken out bad too.
You know what's really interesting? Feel free to tell me to shut up. But do you want to know something interesting about what James Cameron discovered about filming that scene? Because he did the banana peel theory, where he would take a banana, and then if you pull it and cause basically where the center of buoyancy is in the middle of the banana, it splits. But as water fills up the front of the ship, it pulls up the back because it's connected by the double-plated keel, right? Yep. So in the movie, he has it where the bow goes down, the stern comes up, it detaches, and falls back down. So he did studies with a forensic disaster expert and discovered that only 2 things were to happen. One, it would go up, it would detach, turn 90 degrees straight up, and then just go straight down. Or it would fall back down and kind of just go into the water. So with probability and through their demo testing, he realized that it couldn't do both. So if he could go back and refilm it, he wouldn't have the ship detach and fall back and then stand back up and go down. He would have it just 90-degree turn and sink. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in one of the documentaries for the anniversary when he was trying to prove how the ship might have actually broke apart. And it's always just like, man, if I could go back and do it again, I'd do it again.
I really, like you said it before, James Cameron's ability to want to get things correct, you got to admire him for it.
Oh, absolutely.
He's so passionate about it. And to do that, even 20 years later, he's like, I was wrong. Because someone pointed out that when Rose was laying on the board, the star constellations were wrong for that time of year. So when he redid it, you're smirking with me, he went back and re-CGI'd it to the correct star constellations that would be in the air at that scene.
It's so crazy that people, like for me, like I'm just a simpleton here. I watch a movie, I'm not looking at the fucking stars, but the fact that somebody looks at the stars and they're like, that's not what happened back then. Like, that's just wild that people can pick those things out. And then James Cameron's just like, all right, I'll change it for you. I'll make sure it's accurate. And I'm just like, I didn't see anything. What? Just shows how simple I am.
They complained that would not have been the proper location of the stars.
I was just more impressed. I was like, wow, the stars look pretty.
I mean, I was just impressed with all the stars.
I know, right?
The fact that there were
one-
stars.
The one beautiful moment she's having where she thinks she's gonna die, and people are like, you know what? That's wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
They're more worried about the stars. They don't give a shit about her freezing to death. Oh,
here I
my God.
am thinking that Guggenheim was a gentleman for. We're dressed to impress.
That's
We're
what that
gonna
guy's
die
name
with the
was.
ship.
Yes, Guggenheim.
Like-
Yes. They said,
Like, I just feel sorry for the guy that's with him because his eyes are like,
I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. What the fuck am I doing here?
But it's like, yeah, we're dressed to impress. We're going down. Can I get a cup of whatever he asked for?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
So reports, the actual people say that he was last seen in one of like the ballrooms drinking brandy.
man,
Well-
I thought about it when I was watching that movie. I don't know how. Well, me, I can't put myself in their situation, but I don't think I would be that relaxed in a scenario. I'd be one of the 1,500 people at the top of that ship when it was going down. I wouldn't just go into a room and fall asleep.
Yes. Speaking, I'm glad you mentioned that. I was afraid I was going to miss that, but that Ida Strauss and Isidore Strauss, the couple laying on the bed, they were the technically the founders of Macy's, and Isidore, they found Isidore's body, but Issa, they never found hers, which kind of makes it sad because they like in the movie they die together, and you were hoping like either they just both were never found or both were found together. But the fact that they only found one, it's kind of like, oh.
but see,
Yeah,
that interests me too because my grandmother worked at Macy's for 40 years.
My wife worked at Macy's for a little bit.
So, like that part, I was like, oh, Macy's? I'm like,
Well, that
okay.
could have. But you got to think about it though. Like, even if they went on the bed together, like the process of them going down. and
Oh no,
all the
I'm not.
years they
I'm
were-
not thinking of like those extra things, Dan. It was just that because of the moment, you know.
I know, but like not finding the other body. I mean,
But
it
no,
could've
I
been-
get it.
I
Oh yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
If coming from I love my husband. I probably
That's
wouldn't
great.
stay.
I'm
I
so
know
happy.
I
exactly
for
probably
what
you.
you were
wouldn't
gonna say.
stay.
This is news to me. I don't know anything about this.
I wouldn't stay and die with him. I'd be on the lifeboat.
I'd be trying to
like,
find a way to
"Ah."
get the fuck out of here.
I'd be
Yeah.
taking my kids and be like,
I'd be throwing kids.
bye, you're on your own.
Whipping
You'd
I'll
be
find
like,
you
well,
later.
You heard the man, women, and children first. Bye.
I mean, they're the one dad that's trying to tell his kids that he'll find them later.
Mhm.
Like knowing that he won't find them,
Nope.
but trying to soothe them so they'll.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
The hardest one is when after you see the Strausses, you see the mother talking to the kids in the bed.
Oh,
that one hit
man,
me the
yeah.
worst. Especially
killed-
somebody
that
who
killed me.
I mean, you know, having small children, you guys having small children, like that was a gut
But-
punch.
Way worse.
Holy
Knowing
shit.
that you're waiting them to sleep just so they can
Oh
die
my
in
God.
peace.
Were you gonna point out that was the stepmom in Terminator 2?
Oh, was it? Oh,
Yep.
that's
The redhead.
the aliens, the tough chick.
I-
Well,
I thought she was.
Oh, it is!
familiar.
Holy shit!
Ashley,
Yeah,
you
it's
just
the-
blew my fucking mind. She was an alien. She played the tough Marine. I can't remember her
Oh,
name.
shit.
God damn
And
it!
yes, she played the stepmom who then gets taken over by the T-1000. Oh my, Ashley.
Every time I see that scene, it's not as sad anymore because I know that eventually she gets taken over by the T.
That's not what I wanted.
She fights aliens and then gets taken over by a T-1000.
Yeah, she powers through.
Oh shit, I gotta look her up now. I why am I blanking on her name?
It's
I'm gonna look up aliens because I know she was one of the main
It's
characters.
Jeanette Goldstein.
Jeanette Goldstein. Damn, I did not even know. That is wild. That blows my mind. Ashley coming in
there
with the
you
facts.
go.
We've literally talked about her in 2 other movies.
oh shit.
Wow.
I guess because she didn't have.
That's how she's dressed.
Yeah, I
And she
mean,
wasn't buff. And she wasn't.
And to be honest, I
insulting.
think you might have seen her in one other scene in this movie. But also, she looks
Vasquez?
nothing like Vasquez. Like after she played Vasquez in Aliens, like you
Well,
couldn't recognize her in Terminator 2. Like it was not.
No,
It's not the
that.
same person.
We've got
It's
her
her
pulled up.
freckles.
That is not.
That's wild.
That's not.
Wow, you blew my
And
mind,
plus,
Ashley.
she's not insulting, Bill Paxton's sexuality or his manliness.
She's the best. Vasquez is the fucking best.
awesome.
All right. Well,
point of
after
this,
that mind-blowing fact.
Speaking of firearms, I need to point her weapons because we did talk about her. She was the big gun toter.
Yeah.
So something I noticed is technically James Cameron apparently did some research because when Cal's chasing him around with the 1911 and he fires 7 shots, which is the magazine capacity for the 1911. But that doesn't make sense unless that's just how the dude carried it, because this could just be modern like philosophy for carrying a weapon. But the 1911, usually you would load 7 rack. That would give you 1 in the chamber and load your magazine back up to 7, which would give you 8 shots with the hammer back.
Oh, okay.
Safety on. So that would be technically he would have 8 shots.
I mean, here I am.
But that could be how he
count.
carries it. I don't know. Everybody carries different, and it is a different time, so I don't know.
God damn, America, you guys fucking got it down.
That's
This
something
one-
that interests me.
this
We
one
don't fuck
does.
around down here in America.
That's just what interests me. It's
But
not
I'm
all like this.
Being married to him long enough, I learned to count shots.
I do in movies.
But-
I was like,
That I definitely counted 7.
I was 7
I never
shots.
count shots. I just get to a point where like I'm just like, there is no way there's that much fucking ammo in that gun. No
Me too.
way.
I do.
Dude's got an
revolvers real
Uzi. It
bad.
probably has how much? What's the ammo capacity on an Uzi?
Normal magazines 30 to 32.
Okay, and the dude's like 150 rounds. Like what?
I mean, you do get
Come on,
revolvers, and people are like, "How are you shooting 10 rounds?
Yeah,
Like,
it's-
where
I
are
mean,
you
there's some
getting this
wild stuff.
from?"
There's some with 8-round cylinders, some with a little
But-
more, but not in that caliber they
But
usually use.
10?
No.
Like, there's been a couple movies I'm like,
My favorite is the shotguns. My one with the shotguns
yeah.
were like just pop, pop.
Like,
Like
You gotta reload sometime, bro.
please.
We're good.
Anyway,
Oh man. So Jack and Rose get to the back of the ship. They hang on. I love there's that one guy that when Rose and Jack are running towards the back, he tells her to jump off like a high point and she lands, and there's a guy all in white with the mustache. I don't know if he was probably one of the crew, picks her up and says, "Are you okay?" As Jack takes her, he's the one who's standing next to them as they're holding on as it's going down, as he takes like his final sip of whatever he had in there.
Oh.
I'm glad that they kept
whiskey or
him with
something.
them till the end.
He, that guy that you're talking about, he was one of the survivors, and the only reason he survived was because he was drunk.
Yes. He was one of the
Drunk on
bakers
whiskey.
or whatever, and he drank
Yep.
so much
That's
whiskey
awesome.
that he was warm.
And he
This
was
is-
one of the people who proved that there wasn't as much turbulence in the water when the Titanic finally submerged under the water, because he and a couple other people were able to actually just walk off the ship because it was so calm going down.
Wow.
Huh.
Yeah, because
Very
it always threw me off anytime I'd watch this movie, and like when it would fully go under, any type of ship goes down, it's going to cause a lot of suction, and the ship being as big as it is, you would expect it to be a lot, but that's pretty crazy, because I'm like, I feel like they should just been like sucked 50 to 100 feet down.
How long did it take for that last section to go down?
It bobbed in the air for, I don't know the exact time, but there was enough time for people in the water to just watch one of the portholes not move. And then it slowly started to go under, and it was very slow, because a lot of people said like, oh, it would just like fall down or something like that. But the top of the stern of the ship where everybody was the lightest part of the ship, because in the center was where all of the boilers were, and the boilers were attached to the inside of the ship. So as it started to finally go down, it started imploding because of all the buildup of pressure, and that caused turbulence, but it surprisingly was slow, the whole process of it.
So I wonder if that's why the water wasn't as I don't know. There wasn't so much water being displaced because it's going down so slow. The pressure is equalizing at a slower rate. It's not just like and like that you said people
Right.
to walk off of it.
Well, like
I'm assuming.
you
I don't know. That's not my field of expertise.
were talking about, you thought it was cool that they kept, when the windows busted, how it was sucking people.
Oh yeah, it was sucking people back in because it's trying to equalize pressure. The water's filling in, it's pulling people in to that cavity. It's trying to get the equilibrium. Because there's a scene of that one guy swimming by it and starts like pulling him into the fucking window, and he's like, oh, and he grabs like the edge and pulls himself out.
They also had a lot of it. They had ports on the side of the ship that they were supposed to be able to open up and allow people to like they were supposed to let like lifeboats, once they hit the water, they were supposed to go over to these ports and let people get on, but they never used them because no one who was controlling the lifeboats wanted to get close to the ship while it was going down. Because there's a scene in the movie where they actually some third class people open up one of those port doors and they're like forcing it shut. They're like, I gotta shut it. Yeah. So yeah, we get some close calls with
what they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah, so Jack and Rose, they get into the water, and it's chaotic. Everybody's flailing around, and Rose is getting like some dude's just submerging her multiple times to the point where Jack comes over and just punches him in the face.
This would go back to what Ashley was talking about. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Mm.
I mean, if I were in the water,
he was using a woman as a buoy.
Yeah.
Like, people panic in those situations. Like, it's kind of that whole survival, right? Like, the human, when the human body goes into fight or flight, it's crazy not knowing how even yourself could react in those situations.
Yes, and like, I hate when people are like, oh, I wouldn't react like that in that situation. Like, how the hell are you going to know what you're going to react like that if you've never been in that situation?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they find Jack finds a piece of debris, and they both try to get on. It doesn't work out. The door like flips, so Jack just tells her to get up there, and it's them just waiting for for a lifeboat to come back, and to the point where he's trying to be he's trying to be confident. He's trying to like talk her, like trying to keep her at ease that somebody's gonna come, and then she tries to say goodbye, and he's like, "Don't do that. Don't say goodbye." And I was like, "You bastard!
I'll never let go, Jack.
Where you go, I go," which is actually something that comes from the Strausses. That's actually something that I guess they used to say to each other, and so they took that and used it for Jack and Rose.
Makes me sad.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, Rose tried to off herself at the beginning of the fucking movie. Let Jack on that fucking door.
I mean, really?
I know.
That's just me being a pessimist.
Yeah, got
to that point where she slips on her dress, and my daughter's like, "How'd she do that?" I'm like, dramatic effect.
Can you imagine how scary that would be, though? Like, going, like, okay, I'm gonna be fine, and then this quick slip of a dress.
Yeah.
Like,
that scene was done very well, though.
If you're gonna off yourself on a boat, just let me go.
Yep.
Something that I found interesting, I just randomly Google stuff when I find things interesting, and one of them was suicide at sea is actually quite common, and what people will do is they'll purposely take off their shoes or leave a watch around a railing, so if people go, "Oh, where are they?" and they see their shoes, they'll be like, "Okay, we don't have to look for them. They killed themselves."
That makes sense.
Which that's should crazy. Not be. Like, unfortunately, I know that that's the case, but like, you shouldn't be like, "Oh, well, they're dead." Like, that should not.
We had something similar to that in a movie.
I just hate that people are like, "Well, they're gonna find this," so
it's so standardized. It's like it's just accepted.
Yeah, like it's accepted. Like it should not.
Well, I'm sure some people turn.
No, I just said I hate that was such a
accepted idea.
Like an accepted, not from the people finding it, but from the people actually like committing suicide. Like, oh, they'll find this, it'll be okay. Right. Like, it shouldn't be.
I wonder how many. Not to change the subject entirely, I wonder, like, that concept of people doing that at sea, I wonder how many people used that as a way to fake their own deaths.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now that's the stuff I talk about on my show. Conspiracy.
Well, I was said we actually
Exactly.
technically covered this very, very slightly in a film we covered a long time ago when we covered Shin Godzilla. Because at the very beginning, they find that boat. It was Goro Maki's boat, and he leaves everything there in his shoes sitting there.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's interesting. It's probably not exactly the same, but this being an entirely cultural difference between Japanese and then European American concept. So,
but I mean, if I wanted to go off grid, I would take it.
I could walk down the street. We'll be in the woods. You ain't got nothing to worry about here. Go up in the mountains and shit.
I mean, I've listened to enough true crime podcasts. I know how to get rid of myself.
She's one right there.
I've been listening.
She's talking to you.
I know. I've been listening. Look, I have been listening to this stuff since grade school. I graduated in 2004. I'm 37 years old. I know how to.
Angela knows some shit.
I know how to get rid of myself.
She probably knows how to get rid of me. Is the problem?
I mean,
I know how to get rid of you too if I wanted to.
Whoa!
I don't.
She's just gonna leave Peeps in like a locked car that's hot. Like, let's just get me in, lock the door, and I'll just die of heat exhaustion.
It was an accident.
He just wanted his Peeps. He didn't know how to get out. He's a simpleton.
He panicked.
I used my nose to peck the glass. I'll get through.
Oh Lord. So yeah, Jack ends up freezing to death, as we all know from this movie. Yeah, Rose then lets go, even though she said she wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
Traitor. God.
She blows the whistle to catch the guy's attention. This is the guy who plays Mr. Fantastic. This is the guy who's running that boat. And they get brought to the Carpathia. And Rose, then we get the whole thing where like Rose is recovering and Cal's like wandering the ship, and you get the whole background of like that was the last time she'd ever seen him, and like so because of the start of the Great Depression, he ended up supposedly he killed himself when he pretty much lost all his money. And yeah, she went by Rose Dawson until she married this guy whose last name was Calvert. Had kids, did all that stuff, and that's about it. I mean, other than the fact that you get to see the picture, all of her pictures of her living her life. She ends up throwing the heart of the ocean back into the ocean, and my wife went, "Why did she do that? Why didn't she just give it to them? Like, why did she need to do that?"
I never understood that either.
What?
I guess that was the one part of her life that she was able to keep that she didn't want anybody else to have a part of.
I suppose she just fucking.
But it was connected when she got to Cal. It wasn't even Jack's. It was connected to. I guess because she wore it when Jack. I don't know. My wife later is like, asked me like 4. I'm like, why did she? What was the point of that? I'm like,
she kind of makes. She kind of makes that line where she says, "A woman's heart is like the ocean," and then at the end of it, she's finally able to be at peace and let it go where everyone else went, which is why usually people think that she did die because it was left ambiguous. So she got to go back, and it gets me going every fucking time. That scene is so sad.
Yeah, I think the whole notion. Yeah, I think the whole notion is that she dies because that's how she's able to go back to Titanic.
Yeah, she gets to tell her tale, and like there's all the dead people there.
But yeah, like everybody's dead.
Yeah.
That
all
she
my
sees.
friends are dead.
I mean, really.
And the clock that is on the staircase is set to 2:20.
Again, the odds of this whole thing happening, like the odds of you dying, man, talk about carrying like a burden your entire life.
Yep. Because
a lot of the witnesses, and when I say witnesses, I mean survivors, a lot of them actually never told their families that they survived the Titanic. It just randomly came up in conversation because, it's just nobody really talked about it. So that's why. Sorry, go ahead.
It's like Holocaust survivors. That's not something that they wanted to talk about, which I don't blame them for not wanting to. Like, how does that come up in conversation? Like,
people in the military do the same thing.
Yeah.
My grandpa never talked about World War II or Korea very much.
It's usually their kids that'll tell all the stories because it's the stories that were told to them. and only to their children, not really to like friends or anything. But then because like my stepdad would tell me stories about his father, who was in the 82nd Airborne during World War II. He was a paratrooper, and he was in a lot of fights, and he told me all the stories.
That's fucking amazing.
From all of the fights.
Finding out about Papa on Dad's side, like he never said anything. It was always Faith that told the stories. So
yeah, that is Titanic from 1997. The cool thing is I decided to do this episode because we release our episodes on Fridays, and the day that this will be released will be April 14th, which was the day that the Titanic struck the iceberg. But for Patreon members, you will get the episode on April 10th, which was when the Titanic set sail. So
at least you still made it relevant. I was gonna be like, that fucks the whole meaning.
And it was, and I wish I did it last year, because last year was the 110th anniversary of the sinking, but I forgot. And so here we are for the 111th anniversary of the sinking of the Titanic.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had her
last year.
That's true. So it all worked out.
I appreciate the love.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you being here.
We appreciate you being here and sharing all your Titanic knowledge, and just hopefully you had a good time, and this was awesome.
Of course I did. I got the most knowledge about gun control that I've ever gotten in my entire life.
Yes. You can never go wrong with Dan.
And you reignited my brain.
I think it's something. Well, it wasn't my intent, but yes, I think that.
I genuinely found it interesting because I don't know. So I wish you couldn't see my face. Fun fact: they can't see my face, but my mouth was like Kool-Aid smile open, and I was just so amused. Like, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Between cars and guns,
a little bit, just a little bit. So, but if you listen to the show long enough, you probably learn a little bit about it inadvertently, just through conversation. So.
Of course I'm going to. I find you guys you guys are a pleasure. And I'm not just being Canadian polite. I truly mean it. I wish you guys could see my face, but I didn't want to put my makeup on. And I really like you guys. You're fantastic.
It's funny that we have a Canadian friend. And I'm like, man, it's just Adam in
the Canadian
form.
I know, fucking dickhead. Fuck that guy. I hope he's listening to this too.
Go back, edit, and see how many times I said A. I don't think I said it once.
No, I don't think it might have slipped in somewhere, but it was so subtle. It just like I'll hear it when I'm editing it,
and I say it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will when I edit it. If I do catch it, because sometimes I don't catch certain things, but if I catch one, I'll make sure to message you and be like, at this time, this is when.
Let me know if I said bud. That doesn't count, but let me know if I said bud. That's a Canadian one.
I don't think that one. I didn't hear that because I say bud and I'm not even Canadian. Bud is always that's always my text message end thing when I'm talking to most people, mostly guys. It's always bud. Yeah, it's just like, thanks, bud. Hey, I appreciate that, bud. Like, everybody's bud.
Yeah, I didn't know A was a Canadian thing until I was in high school. I'm like, I say that.
You're secretly Canadian.
I guess I'm secretly Canadian. Like, I did plan on moving to Canada with my best friend from grade school, and it never happened.
And you would have never met Daniel, and then this podcast wouldn't exist.
No, but that's where they're from. That's where my best friends were from.
What, Canada?
From Nebraska. Yeah. Jeannie and Holly.
I know. I didn't know that's you guys were planning on fucking seceding.
Yeah, I was gonna move after high school to Canada with Jeannie. Kind of glad that didn't happen.
I'm kind of glad it didn't happen either.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's Ashley, why don't you tell us what's going to be going on over there at Lullaby the Fear podcast?
Well, I guess this will be irrelevant. So my next episode is out tomorrow, but
as of this recording, everybody, not when you hear this. As of this recording, her newest episode will be out tomorrow.
Time travel ahead. Episodes come out on Mondays. But yeah, I did an episode on the RMS Titanic because there were so many things that happened, and I tried to kind of brief over some of them. If you're really interested in A to Z for Titanic, including like the trials afterwards, I did the episode, and I get really excited when I talk about it because, like you said, what about Captain E.J. Smith? It's like, here we go. I'm going on a rant. because that guy had a laundry list of what he could have done right. So I hope you listen to it. If not, that's cool too. I just,
absolutely.
I'm happy to be here.
We're going to be linking both the show and that specific episode, since it does link into what we talked about today. Make sure to check out Lullaby the Fear podcast. I don't listen to a lot. To be honest, I think you're the only true crime podcast I listen to, because for some reason it's just not something I had done so much in my youth of just like reading about serial killers and all that stuff. I was just like kind of at a lull moment, but like I remember listening. I think it was your who was the Nazi?
Oh, Joseph Mengele.
Yeah, that was the first episode I had listened to, and it would just blew my mind. And I was like, I gotta go. I gotta keep going. This is fantastic. So
that makes me really happy, because there are so many true crime podcasts out there, and I tried to bring my radio background. I don't work in radio, but I loved growing up listening to like the old time radio shows, like The Shadow or like all those old ones. So I wanted to incorporate a way to teach people of the crimes, but from the day it started to the day it ended. And that's because a lot of people kind of like skim over it, where to understand the progression of a crime, you have to start from the beginning. And I love doing it, and I love history. So going into it, I try to do it different than other podcasts. I'm not saying I'm better, not in any way, so don't change my words. I just try to do it in a more creative way to what I'm comfortable with. And I'm glad you appreciate it. I truly do. Thank you.
I'm very excited to download the newest episode tomorrow.
I'm so
excited. So excited.
I'm going
Here's
to work.
a hint.
I'll give it a shot.
Well, not us over here looking at.
Yeah, we're not laughing at what you're saying. It's something she just realized.
I just realized that you are in the same province as our buddy Adam Blank from Remember the Podcast.
Remember the Game.
Or Remember the Game podcast.
Oh, hi, fellow Albertan.
Yes.
So,
I was wait a minute.
So all of Ashley's links will be down in the description of the video and in our show notes. So make sure to go follow Lullaby the Fear podcast. Make sure to listen to the Titanic episode, especially, you're going to get more in-depth information on the actual event, on all the different people that were on the ship, how certain things were affected. You get so much more of a deep dive in than what we were able to do here, which is not really what we do here. So that's why we like to direct people to other podcasts that are talking about similar topics. We talk about movies, but it's nice to be able to incorporate the history, especially when it's based on something true. So that's why having Ashley here was great. Next week, guys, we're jumping into our first week of our Disney coverage. We're going to be looking for the next 4 weeks. We're going to be talking about Disney animated movies alongside their live action remakes. And we're starting off next week with Angela's pick of Beauty and the Beast, where we're going to be talking about the 1991 animated movie compared to the 2017 live action film with Emma Watson. So it's already recorded, everybody. But it was a really good one. It's going to be great. A lot of fun. We're going to be covering that. The Jungle Book, my pick. I still haven't picked one yet. And then we're going to be doing a whole episode. We're just going to be talking about all Disney remakes and the goods, the bads, the uglies of Disney, and what they think is good for live action and what they shouldn't be doing anymore.
So we don't.
Oh, that'll be so good. I was gonna say a live action Aristocats. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The cat's the only cat that knows where it's at.
I mean, everybody wants to be a cat.
True.
Just can't do the Siamese. Oh no, wait, was the Siamese cats? That was Lady in the Tramp.
Well, he does play chopsticks on the piano.
Yes, he does. Yeah.
With a very insensitive accent as well.
Yes. But yeah, I can't believe we're in triple digits now. This was episode 101, which is just insane to think about. And yeah, thank you everybody for supporting the show. Make sure you follow us at Dissect That Film at all the all the social medias, podcast services. We're at Dissect That Film there. And yeah, thanks for all the comments and everything there. We don't have any comments though this week. As we do, we always put a comment out to ask what people thought of the movie that we're covering. All we got was that people were excited that Ashley was on the show, and you know what? That's all we need.
Got one. I got one.
He's got one.
You got one.
Yeah.
Read it to us, Angela.
2 Peas in a Pod says one of the all-time greats.
Wow, that must have been a late one. But thanks, Gerald. We love you, man.
It was from yesterday. It was from yesterday.
Oh, Ashley, I didn't ask you. Where can people find you?
Oh, well, you can find me at Twitter at Lullaby the Fear and on Instagram at Lullaby the Fear Podcast. And I'm on all listening platforms, so go to town.
Yes. Like I said, every link will be down in the description, so you can click on whatever you need to. All right, everybody. Well, this episode will be shorter than the movie itself, but it's pretty damn close. So we're going to get out of here right now. So thank you, everybody. Until next time, I am Brett Parker. That is Dan and Angela of DNA Gaming. And that is Ashley Lanna from Lullaby the Fear Podcast. This has been episode 101 of the Dissect That Film podcast. See y'all again next time. Bye-bye.